Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I guess we don't have enough seats today. Wow. In the last quarter century, a sitting president of the United States has come to Davos only twice. Both times it was Donald Trump. So when I asked to serve in this new role that I have, he was one of the first leaders I called and invited to return. I first met the president about 25 years ago, but I worked most closely with him during the early months of COVID. This was March 2020. Markets were under extreme stress. Some economists were warning we could be headed towards a second Great Depression. What stood out to me during the extraordinary period was a president's willingness to bring together people from governments, from business, across institutions, across perspective, to think differently, and importantly, to act decisively. That instinct to act, especially in pivotal moments, is one reason I think he values the World Economic Forum. It is a unique institution that brings together the largest combination of government officials, business leaders, technology leaders, civil society and NGO leaders, anywhere in the world for a genuine dialogue. And particularly, importantly, this year. Thankfully, this group is meeting under better economic circumstances than during the pandemic. But once again, we're facing very serious different economic conditions around the world. One of the central challenges that is impacting me is how capitalism can benefit more, and how can we broaden our global economy for greater and greater participation. That is a question where the president has shown real leadership through investing in infrastructure, reducing barriers to growth, and initiatives like the Trump account, designed to give more Americans a direct stake in the growth of the U.S. economy. As he enters the second year of his second term, we are interested in hearing his plans for 2026 and beyond, and will no doubt create more and more conversation. And that's what the forum is about, a serious conversation in the spirit of dialogue. Discussions where the world is headed, where are we going? And these discussions would be incomplete without the President of the United States, the most important leader in the world. We appreciate him here, so let me introduce and welcome back to Davos the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. It's great to be back in beautiful Davos, Switzerland, and to address so many respected business leaders, so many friends, few enemies, and all of the distinguished guests. It's a who's who, I will say that. I've come to this year's World Economic Forum with truly phenomenal news from America. Yesterday marked the one-year anniversary of my inauguration, and today, after 12 months back in the White House, our economy is booming, growth is exploding, productivity is surging, investment is soaring, incomes are rising, inflation has been defeated, our previously open and dangerous border is closed and virtually impenetrable. And the United States is in the midst of the fastest and most dramatic economic turnaround in our country's history. Under the Biden administration, America was plagued by the nightmare of stagflation, meaning low growth, and high inflation, a recipe for misery, failure, and decline. But now, after just 1 year of my policies, we are witnessing the exact opposite: virtually no inflation and extraordinarily high economic growth. Growth like I believe you'll see very shortly our country has never seen before, perhaps no country has ever seen before. Over the past 3 months, core inflation has been just 1.6%. Meanwhile, fourth quarter growth is projected to be 5.4%, far greater than anybody other than myself and a few others had predicted. Since the election, the stock market has set 52 all-time high records. So that's in 1 year, 52 records, adding $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts, 401ks, and people's savings. People are doing very well. They're very happy with me. Since my inauguration, we've lifted more than 1.2 million people off of food stamps, and after 4 years in which Biden secured less than $1 trillion of new investment in our country. Think of that, $1 trillion, substantially less than that. In 4 years, we've secured commitments for a record-breaking $18 trillion, and we think when the final numbers come out, they'll be closer to $20 trillion of investment. That's never been done by any country at any time, not even close. Just over 1 year ago, under the radical left Democrats, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. In fact, the United States economy is on pace to grow at double the rate that was projected by the IMF just last April. And with my growth and tariff policies, it should be much higher. I really believe we can be much higher than that. And this is all great news, and it's great for all nations. The USA is the economic engine on the planet, and when America booms, the entire world booms. It's been the history. When it goes bad, it goes bad. You all follow us down, and you follow us up, and we're at a point that I don't believe we've ever been. I never thought we could do it this quickly. My biggest surprise is I thought it would take more than a year, maybe like a year and 1 month. But it's happened very quickly. This afternoon, I want to discuss how we have achieved this economic miracle, how we intend to raise living standards for our citizens to levels never seen before, and perhaps how you too and the places where you come from can do much better by following what we're doing, because certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody and say I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good. But it's not heading in the right direction. In recent decades, it became conventional wisdom in Washington and European capitals that the only way to grow a modern Western economy was through ever-increasing government spending, unchecked mass migration, and endless foreign imports. The consensus was that so-called dirty jobs and heavy industry should be sent elsewhere, that affordable energy should be replaced by the Green New Scam, and that countries could be propped up by importing new and entirely different populations from faraway lands. This was the path that Sleepy Joe Biden administration and many other Western governments very foolishly followed, turning their backs on everything that makes nations rich and powerful and strong. And there's so much potential in so many nations. The result was record budget and trade deficits and a growing sovereign deficit driven by the largest wave of mass migration in human history. We've never seen anything like it. Quite frankly, many parts of our world are being destroyed before our very eyes, and the leaders don't even understand what's happening. And the ones that do understand aren't doing anything about it. Virtually all of the so-called experts predicted my plans to end this failed model would trigger a global recession and runaway inflation. but we have proven them wrong. It's actually just the opposite. In 1 year, our agenda has produced a transformation like America has not seen in over 100 years. Instead of closing down energy plants, we're opening them up. Instead of building ineffective, money-losing windmills, we're taking them down and not approving any. Instead of empowering bureaucrats, we're firing them, and they're going out and getting jobs in the private sector for 2 and 3 times what they were making in government. So they started off hating me when we fired them, and now they love me. Instead of raising taxes on domestic producers, we're lowering them and raising tariffs on foreign nations to pay for the damage that they've caused. In 12 months, we have removed over 270,000 bureaucrats from the federal payrolls, the largest single-year reduction in government employment since the end of World War II. Nobody thought that was coming, but we had no choice. To make a country great, you can't have all federal jobs. We've cut federal spending by $100 billion and slashed the federal budget deficit by 27% in the single year. It's going to go down quite a bit more from that, driving inflation way down from the record highs of the Biden administration. Every month, they went up and up and up. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every single new regulation, but instead I've cut, actually, till this point, 129 regulations for every 1 new regulation approved. So every time they come in with a new regulation, we do at least 10, but so far it's averaging out to 129, if you can believe it. In July, we passed the largest tax cuts in American history, including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. We also provided 100% expensing. That's the one they like. And bonus depreciation for all new equipment and capital investments to help companies expand and shift production to America. They are so in love with that. They build a plant, they're able to deduct it immediately, the whole thing, rather than waiting 38 to 41 years in the old days. This is a miracle taking place. Nobody thought it would ever be done by any country, but it's done by us. It was what made my first term the most successful 4-year term that we've ever had from a financial standpoint. And now we've upped it. This is a 10-year program, not a 1-year program. But you're allowed to deduct everything in 1 year. It used to be 38 to 41 years. With tariffs, we've radically reduced our ballooning trade deficit, which was the largest in world history. We were losing more than $1 trillion every single year, and it was just wasted. It was going to waste. But in 1 year, I slashed our monthly trade deficit by a staggering 77%, and all of this with no inflation. Something everyone said could not be done. There were a couple of brilliant people that actually thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. Now they all think I'm doing the right thing because they can't believe the numbers. American exports are now up by more than $150 billion. Domestic steel production is up by 300,000 tons a month, and it's doubling over the next 4 months. It's doubling and tripling, and we have steel plants being built all over the country. Nobody thought they'd see that. Factory construction is up by 41%, and that number is really going to skyrocket right now because that's during a process that they're putting in to get their approvals, and we've given very, very quick, fast approvals. In the process, we've made historic trade deals with partners covering 40% of all U.S. trade. Some of the greatest companies and countries in the world. We have countries as our partner, too. The European nations, Japan, South Korea. They're our partners. They've gone into massive deals with us, especially on oil and gas. And these agreements raise growth and cause stock markets to boom, not only in the U.S., but virtually every country that came to make a deal, because, as you've learned, when the United States goes up, you follow. It's really become a staple In America, I've stopped the nation-wrecking energy policies that drive up prices while sending jobs and factories to the world's worst polluters. They are indeed polluters. Under Sleepy Joe Biden, new domestic oil and gas leases fell by 95%. Think of that. And they wonder, why was gasoline going up so fast? The gasoline actually topped $5 a gallon, and some places $7 a gallon, and more than 100 major power plants were violently shut down by incompetent people that had no idea what the hell they were doing. Under my leadership, U.S. natural gas production is at an all-time high by far. U.S. oil production is up by 730,000 barrels a day, and last week we picked up 50 million barrels from Venezuela alone. Venezuela has been an amazing place for so many years, but then they went bad with their policies. 20 years ago, it was a great country, and now it's got problems, but we're helping them. And those 50 million barrels, we're going to be splitting up with them, and they'll be making more money than they've made in a long time. Venezuela is going to do fantastically well. We appreciate all of the cooperation we've been giving. We've been giving great cooperation. Once the attack ended, and they said, let's make a deal. More people should do that. But Venezuela is going to make more money in the next 6 months than they've made in the last 20 years. Every major oil company is coming in with us. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing to see. The leadership of the country has been very good. They've been very, very smart. The price of gasoline is now below $2.50 a gallon in many states, $2.30 a gallon in most states. Then we'll soon be averaging less than $2 a gallon. In many places, it's already down even lower, $1.95 a gallon. Numerous states are at $1.99, numbers that nobody has heard for years. Actually, since my last administration, we got it down to around those numbers. I've signed an order directing and approval of many new nuclear reactors. We're going heavy into nuclear. I was not a big fan because I didn't like the risk, the danger. But they have the progress they've made with nuclear is unbelievable, and the safety progress they've made is incredible. We're very much into the world of nuclear energy, and we can have it now at good prices and very, very safe. And we're leading the world in AI by a lot. We're leading China by a lot. I think President Xi respects what we've done, in part because I've allowed these big companies building these massive buildings to build their own electric capacity. They're building their own power plants, which when added up is more than any country anywhere in the world is doing. I read recently an article in the Wall Street Journal that China's creating so much energy, and they are. I got to hand it to them. But we're creating as much or more, and we're letting them do that. I'm very proud of it. It was my idea. I said, you can't create this much energy. We needed more than double the energy currently in the country just to take care of the AI plants. And I said, we can't do that. We have an old grid system. And I came up with the idea, you people are brilliant. You have a lot of money. Let's see what you can do. You can build your own electric generating plants. And they looked at me. They didn't believe me. All of the names that are, I think, in the room right now, if you want to know the truth, they didn't believe it. And I said, no, you can't. They came back 2 weeks and they didn't have the plant. They said, we thought you were kidding. I said, no, not only am I not kidding, you're going to have your approvals within 2 weeks. I always say nuclear will take 3 weeks. But most aren't going that. They're going oil and gas. They're even going coal in some cases. Because of my landslide election victory, the United States avoided the catastrophic energy collapse which befell every European nation that pursued the Green New Scam, perhaps the greatest hoax in history. The Green New Scam, windmills all over the place, destroy your land. Every time that goes around, you lose $1,000. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. Here in Europe, We've seen the fate that the radical left tried to impose on America. They tried very hard. Germany now generates 22% less electricity than it did in 2017. And it's not the current chancellor's fault. He's solving the problem. He's going to do a great job. But what they did before he got there, I guess that's why he got there. And electricity prices are 64% higher. The United Kingdom produces just 1/3 of the total energy from all sources that it did in 1999. Think of that, 1/3. And they're sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest reserves anywhere in the world, but they don't use it. And that's one reason why their energy has reached catastrophically low levels with equally high prices. High prices, very low levels. Think of that, 1/3. And you're sitting on top of the North Sea, and they like to say, well, you know, that's depleted. It's not depleted. It's got 500 years. They haven't even found the oil. The North Sea is incredible. They don't let anybody drill. Environmentally, they don't let them drill. They make it impossible for the oil companies to go. They take 92% of the revenues. So the oil companies say, we can't do it. They came to see me. Is there anything you can do? I want Europe to do great. I want UK to do great. Sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it. In fact, their electricity prices have soared 139%. There are windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers. One thing I've noticed is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China is very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves.
Oh, snap.
They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal, mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear a little bit. And they're doing just fine. They make a fortune selling the windmills, though, and I think really that's one that they wouldn't be surprised if it stopped. They are shocked that it continues to go. They're very friendly with me. They're shocked that people continue to buy those damn things. They killed the birds. They ruin your landscapes. Other than that, I think they're fabulous, by the way. Stupid people buy them. The consequences of such destructive policies have been stark, including lower economic growth, lower standards of living, lower birth rates, more socially disruptive migration, more vulnerability to hostile foreign adversaries, and much, much smaller militaries. The United States cares greatly about the people of Europe. We really do. I mean, look, I am derived from Europe. Scotland and Germany, 100% Scotland, my mother, 100% German, my father. And we believe deeply in the bonds we share with Europe as a civilization. I want to see it do great. That's why issues like energy, trade, immigration, and economic growth must be central concerns to anyone who wants to see a strong and united West, because Europe and those countries have to do their thing. They have to get out of the culture that they've created over the last 10 years. It's horrible what they're doing to themselves. They're destroying themselves. It's beautiful, beautiful places. We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. We want Europe to be strong. Ultimately, these are matters of national security, and perhaps no current issue makes the situation more clear than what's currently going on with Greenland. Would you like me to say a few words of Greenland? I was going to leave it out of the speech, but I think I would have been reviewed very negatively. I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark. Tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory. And hold it we did, at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now, you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory. It's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places. There's no rare earth, no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere. And we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries, they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however. In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired. There's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. You can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it. When I went in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation. If you look, the border was open. The inflation was raging. Everything was bad with the United States when I came into office. But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would have never happened. And I know Putin very well. He and I would discuss Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. It was terrible what happened. I could see it happening, too. After I left, I could see it happening. Biden had given Ukraine and NATO $350 billion, a staggering sum, $350 billion. I came in, and just like the southern border, just like inflation, just like our economy, I said, wow, this place is in trouble, meaning our country. All of these things were out of control. But the border was out of control. We fixed it with the strongest border anywhere in the world. And I've now been working on this war for 1 year, during which time I settled 8 other wars. India, Pakistan. I settled other wars that were Vladimir Putin called me, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He said, I can't believe you settled that one. They were going on for 35 years. I settled it in 1 day. And President Putin called me. He said, you know, I can't believe I've worked on that war for 10 years trying to settle it. I couldn't do it. I said, do me a favor, focus on settling your war. Don't worry about that one. What does the United States get out of all of this work, all of this money, other than death, destruction, and massive amounts of cash going to people who don't appreciate what we do? They don't appreciate what we do. I'm talking about NATO. I'm talking about Europe. They have to work on Ukraine. We don't. The United States is very far away. We have a big, beautiful ocean separating us. We have nothing to do with it. Until I came along, NATO was only supposed to pay 2% of GDP. But they weren't paying. Most of the countries weren't paying anything. The United States was paying for virtually 100% of NATO. And I got that stopped. I said, that's not fair. But then, more importantly, I got NATO to pay 5%, and now they were paying, and now they are paying. So something nobody said was possible. They said we will never go up higher than 2%. But they went to 5%, and now they're paying the 5. They didn't pay the 2, and now they're paying the 5. And they're stronger for it, and they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? Yes, he's here. Hello, Mark. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them. We were a powerful force then, but we are a much more powerful force now. After I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so today, we have a budget of $1.5 trillion. We're bringing back battleships. The battleship is 100 times more powerful than the great battleships you saw in World War II, those great, big, gorgeous ships, the Missouri, the Iowa, the Alabama. Because I thought maybe we could take them out of mothballs. They said, no, sir, these ships are 100, think of that, 100 times more powerful than those big, magnificent pieces of art that you saw so many times ago, that you still see on television. You say, wow, what a force. 100 times, each ship 100 times more powerful than the big battleships of the past. So that was the end of the mothball story. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease, which is a large piece of ice in the middle of the ocean where if there is a war, much of the action will take place on that piece of ice. Think of it. Those missiles would be flying right over the center of that piece of ice. All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that,
oh my God,
Mark, the next time you make your statements. What we did for Israel was amazing, but that's nothing compared to what we have planned for the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. We are going to build a dome like no other. We did it for Israel. And by the way, I told Bibi, stop taking credit for the dome. That's our technology. That's our stuff. But they had a lot of courage, and they were good fighters, and they did a good job, and we wiped out the Iran nuclear threat like nobody can believe. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. That, Venezuela, taking down Soleimani, wiping out al-Baghdadi when he tried to reinstitute ISIS. We did a lot. I did a lot of big things. all perfectly executed. Everyone was perfectly executed. Somebody told me that, a military expert told me, sir, everything you've done has been perfectly executed. I said, I know. So other presidents have spent, whether foolishly or not, trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO and gotten absolutely nothing in return. We've never asked for anything. It's always a one-way street. Now they want us to help them with Ukraine. And we say, we're going to. I'm really helping, not even them. I want to see, last week, if you saw, it was 10,000 soldiers, but last month it was 31,000 soldiers died. 31,000. That's this room times, the number of people in this room times 30. Think of it. 30,000 soldiers died in 1 month. The month before it was 27,000. The month before that it was 28,000. The month before that it was 25,000. It's a bloodbath over there. And that's what I want to stop. It doesn't help the United States, but these are souls. These are young people. Look like you, look like some of you right in the front row. They go to war. Their parents are so proud. Oh, there he goes, comes back. 2 weeks later, they get a call, your son's head's been blown off. I want to stop it. It's a horrible war. It's the worst since World War II. They keep going. They'll exceed World War II. The numbers are staggering, how many people they've lost. They don't want to talk about it. Ukraine and Russia lost just tremendous amounts. And I'm dealing with President Putin, and he wants to make a deal, I believe. I'm dealing with President Zelensky, and I think he wants to make a deal. I'm meeting him today. He might be in the audience right now. But they got to get that war stopped because too many people are dying, needlessly dying. Too many souls are being lost. It's the only reason I'm interested in doing it. But in doing it, I'm helping Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time. Very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being. But now what I'm asking for is a piece of ice, cold and poorly located, that can play a vital role in world peace and world protection. It's a very small ask compared to what we have given them for many, many decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. But that dip is peanuts compared to what it's gone up. And we have an unbelievable future in that stock. That stock market is going to be doubled. We're going to hit 50,000, and that stock market's going to double in a relatively short period of time because of everything that's happening. But this is a good example. After giving NATO and European nations trillions and trillions of dollars in defense, they buy our weapons. We make the greatest weapons in the world, but now we're going to make them faster, much faster. You saw that. I put a cap on the salaries. Then I put no buybacks, no stock buybacks, no various other things that they were doing. I mean, they were making $50 million, but it would take them 3 years to give you a Patriot missile. I said, that's not good. My chauffeur can do a better job than that, and he makes slightly less than 50. They make big salaries. If they're going to make those big salaries, they're going to have to produce a lot faster. The good news is we have the greatest equipment in the world. Now we're going to start making it a lot faster. They're going to build additional plants. And all of the money that goes into stock buybacks is going to go into building plants. We're not allowing stock buybacks by defense companies any longer. They're going to build new plants to make Tomahawks, Patriots. We have the best equipment, F-35s. F-47, the new one just coming out. They say it's the most devastating plane, fighter jet ever. Who knows? They called it 47. If I don't like it, I'm going to take the 47 off it. I wonder why they called it 47. We'll have to think about that. But if I don't like it, I'm going to take that 47 off. But it's supposed to be the stage 6. It's supposed to be the first stage 6 plane, undetectable, like our B-2 bombers were undetectable. They flew right over Iran. They were undetectable. And they did their job, and they got the hell out of there. So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember. A strong and secure America means a strong NATO. And that's one reason why I'm working every day to ensure our military is very powerful. Our borders are very strong. And above all, our economy is strong because national security requires economic security and economic prosperity. And we have the greatest that we've ever had. Biden and his allies destroyed our economy and gave us perhaps the worst inflation in American history. They say 48 years, I say forever, but I think 48 years is the equivalent to forever. Whether it's 48 years or ever, it's terrible, costing the typical family $33,000. What they did to this country should never, ever be forgotten. It's early. But he has to be rated as the worst president we've ever had by far. The auto pen did much of the damage. The auto pen, he was the auto pen president, because I don't believe a sane president would have ever signed the kind of things that he signed. But now grocery prices, energy prices, airfares, mortgage rates, rent, and car payments are all coming down, and they're coming down fast. We inherited a mess, but we've done a hell of a job in 12 months. Under my most favored nation policy for drug prices, the cost of prescription drugs is coming down by up to 90%, depending on the way you calculate. You could also say 5, 6, 7, 800%. There are two ways of figuring that. But we have a favored nations policy that every president wanted, no president was able to get. I got it, and other nations approved it. And I had to use tariffs in order to get it, because they said, no way. In other words, a pill that costs 10% in London costs $130. Think it costs $10 in London, costs $130 in New York or in Los Angeles. And I'd say, boy, that's bad. Friends of mine would say, you know, we go to London, you can buy the stuff for nothing. We go all over the world, we can buy it for nothing. Because basically America was subsidizing every nation in the world because presidents allowed them to get away with it. It became very tough. So when I called up Emmanuel Macron, I watched him yesterday with those beautiful sunglasses. What the hell happened? But I watched him sort of be tough. But he was at $10 for a pill. And I said, Emmanuel, and I have all the big pharmaceutical companies are in total agreement. It wasn't easy, by the way. They're tough, smart. They've been getting away with the scam for a long time. But they gave it up. But they said, you'll never get the countries to approve it. I said, why is that? Because they won't. They always said, we're not paying any more. Get the rest for the United States. So over the years, they stayed the same. We just went up, up, up. And I mean, we would pay 13, 14, 15 times more than certain countries would. So I said, no, they'll approve it 100%. Sir, you'll never get them to approve it. I said, I guarantee you. But I actually started with Emmanuel, who probably is in the room too. And I like him. I actually like him. Hard to believe, isn't it? And I said, Emmanuel, you're going to have to lift the price of that pill to $20, maybe $30. Think of that. That means it's a doubling of prescription drugs. Might be a tripling, might be a quadrupling. It's not easy. No, 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 Donald, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will, 100%. He said, no, no, no. You're asking me to double. I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it, and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, 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 I will not do it. Because, yes, in all fairness to him, he has to double or triple. Because the world being a bigger place than the United States, it's not that you meet in the middle. You just have to go up some, and we come down a lot. They go up a little, we come down a lot. So we're at $130, they're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No, no, no. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it. You're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it, but you may make me do that. No, no, Donald, I will do it. I will do it. It took me, on average, 3 minutes a country saying the same thing. You will do it. They all said, no, 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 I will not do it. You're asking me to double the cost of prescription. I said, that's right, because you've been screwing us for 30 years. And they said, we will not do it. I said, that's all right. On Monday morning, we're putting a 25, 30, 50. I gave different numbers for different countries. This is also national security we're talking about. Not fair. We're not going to subsidize the whole world. And every one of those countries have agreed to do it. So one of the biggest things that I've done is the fact that we have now most favored nation. We will pay whatever the lowest price is in the entire world. So our drug prices are going to be coming down by staggering 90%. Again, you could say 1,000%, 2,000%. Depends on the way you want to figure it, but we'll go with the way the fake news likes it better because it sounds, can you imagine a 90% reduction sounds much worse. But drug prices are going to be coming down tremendously in all the nations, and I appreciate them doing it, but they did it. In all fairness, without tariffs, I wouldn't have been able to get it done. After declining $3,000 under Biden, real incomes are up in the United States by $2,000, $3,000, and even $5,000 and more. Home ownership has always been a symbol of health and vigor of American society, but that goal fell out of reach for millions and millions of people in the Biden era because interest rates went up so high. Today, I'm taking action to bring back this bedrock of the American dream. In recent years, Wall Street giants and institutional investment firms, many of you are here, many of you are good friends of mine, many of you are supporters. Sorry to do this, Joe, I'm so sorry. But you've driven up housing prices by purchasing hundreds of thousands of single-family homes, and it's been a great investment for them. Often as much as 10% of houses on the market. You know, the crazy thing is a person can't get depreciation on a house, but when a corporation buys it, they get depreciation. Okay, that's something we're going to have to think about, too. I don't know if too many people think about that. You buy a corporation, they buy 500 houses. They buy hundreds of thousands. They buy 500 houses. They can take depreciation. A person sweats and works and buys one house. They can't. But homes are built for people, not for corporations, and America will not become a nation of renters. We're not going to do that. That's why I have signed an executive order banning large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. It's just not fair to the public. They're not able to buy a house. And I'm calling on Congress to pass that ban into permanent law, and I think they will. One of the biggest barriers to saving for a down payment has been surging credit card debt. The profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%, one of the biggest. And they charge Americans interest rates of 28%, 30%, 31%, 32%. Whatever happened to usury? So to help our citizens recover from the Biden disaster, all caused by this horrible precedent, I'm asking Congress to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year. and this will help millions of Americans save for a home. They have no idea they're paying 28%. They go out there a little late in their payment and they end up losing their house. It's terrible. To unleash innovation in savings and financing, I'm also working to ensure America remains the crypto capital of the world. And to that end, last year I signed the landmark Genius Act into law. Now Congress is working very hard on crypto market structure legislation, Bitcoin, all of them, which I hope to sign very soon, unlocking new pathways for Americans to reach financial freedom. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I thought it was politically good, and it was. I got tremendous political support. But more importantly, China wanted that market too. It's just like they want the AI. And we've got that market, I think, pretty well locked up. If I didn't do it, Biden was totally against it until before the election when they realized that, there were millions of people voting against him over crypto. And all of a sudden they loved it very much, but it was too late. They blew it. But it is politically popular, but it's much more importantly, we have to make it so that China doesn't get the hold of it. And once they have that hold, we're not going to be able to get it back. So I'm honored to have done it. Finally, I've instructed government-backed institutions to purchase up to $200 billion in mortgage bonds to bring down interest rates. And I'll be announcing a new Fed chairman in the not-too-distant future. I think he'll do a very good job. See, I gave away some of it. He did give that away. So we have something, got something, but somebody that's very respected. They're all respected. They're all great. Everyone that I interviewed is great. Everyone could do, I think, a fantastic job. Problem is they change once they get the job. They do. They're saying everything I want to hear, and then they get the job. They're locked in for 6 years. They get the job, and all of a sudden, let's raise rates a little bit. I call them, sir, we'd rather not talk about this. It's amazing how people change once they have the job. It's too bad. Sort of disloyalty, but they got to do what they think is right. We have a terrible chairman right now, Jerome Too Late Powell. He's always too late. And he's very late with interest rates, except before the election. He was just fine for the other side. So we're going to have somebody that's great, and we hope he does the right job. Last week, the average 30-year mortgage rate dropped below 6% for the first time in many years. Another major factor in driving up housing costs was the mass invasion of our borders. And I have to say one thing about housing, because nobody ever says this. I am very protective of people that already own a house, of which we have millions and millions and millions. And because we have had such a good run, the house values have gone up tremendously. And these people have become wealthy. They weren't wealthy. They become wealthy because of their house. And every time you make it more and more and more affordable for somebody to buy a house cheaply, you're actually hurting the value of those houses, obviously, because the one thing works in tandem with the other. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the value of people that own a house who, for the first time in their lives, are walking around the streets of whatever city they're in, very proud that their house is worth $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Now, if I want to really crush the housing market, I could do that so fast and people could buy houses, but you would destroy a lot of people that already have houses. In some cases, they've mortgaged their house, and the mortgage would be very low, and all of a sudden the mortgage without any changes becomes very high, and they end up losing the house. I'm not going to hurt, and I speak with Scott, who's doing a fantastic job, and Howard, who's doing a fantastic job, and all of my people. And I always say, look, I can crush the hell out of the market. We can drop interest rates to a level, and that's one thing we do want to do. That's natural. That's good for everybody. The dropping of the interest rates, we should be paying a much lower interest rate than we are. We should be paying the lowest interest rate of any country in the world, because without the United States, you don't have a country. I had a case with Switzerland. We happened to be in Switzerland. Maybe I'll give you a quick story. But they were paying nothing. They make beautiful watches, great watches, Rolex, all of them. They were paying nothing to the United States when they sent their product in. And we had a $41 billion deficit. $41 billion with this beautiful place. Flew over it, isn't it nice? So I said, let's put a 30% tariff on them so that we get back some of it, not all of it at all. We still have a deficit, big deficit. We had 41 million. That's a big deficit. And I said, let's put a tariff on. Different tariffs, different places. You're all party to them. In some cases, victims to them. But in the end, it's a fair thing. And most of you realize that. But we put a 30% tariff on Switzerland, and all hell broke loose. They were calling, like you wouldn't believe. And I know so many people from Switzerland, incredible place, incredible, brilliant place. But I didn't realize that they're only good because of us. And there's so many other examples. Us, probably other places, but a majority of the money they make is because of us, because we never charged them anything. So they come in, they sell their watches, no tariffs, no nothing. They walk away, they make $41 billion on just us. So I said, no, we can't do that. So I'm going to bring it up. I still would have a deficit pretty substantial, but I brought it up to 30%. And I guess Prime Minister, I don't think President, I think Prime Minister called a woman, and she was very repetitive. She said, no, you cannot do that, 30%. You cannot do that. We are a small, small country. I said, yeah, but you have a big, big deficit. You may be small, but you have a bigger deficit than big countries. He said, no, please, you cannot do it. Kept saying the same thing over and over. We are a small country. I said, but you're a big country in terms of... And she just rubbed me the wrong way, I'll be honest with you. And I said, all right, thank you, ma'am, appreciate it. Do not do this. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I made it 39%. And then all hell really broke out. And I was paid visits by everybody. Rolex came to see me. They all came to see me. But I realized, and I reduced it, because I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to hurt them. And we brought it down to a, lower level. Doesn't mean it's not going up. But we brought it down to a lower level. But they pay now, tariff. But I realized that we have many places like that where they're making a fortune because of the United States. Without the United States, they wouldn't be making anything. Think of it. Switzerland made $41 billion on us. And as she said, it's a small place. And I realized with that, I don't know, because she was so aggressive. And I realized in that conversation that the United States is keeping the whole world afloat. Many places, I could give you 6, 7 places just in the people in this little area. I know every one of them. They're looking down. They don't want to see me, and they don't want to stare me in the eyes. But they're taking advantage of, everybody took advantage of the United States. But I've been very fair, and I gave them a tariff, and it was fine. But I realized that without us, it's not Switzerland anymore. Without us, it's not any of the countries that are represented here. And we want to work with the countries. We want to work with them. We're not looking to destroy them. I could have said 39, 40%. I could have said I want a 70% tariff, then we make money with Switzerland. But Switzerland would have been probably destroyed, financially destroyed. I don't want to do that. But we should be paying the lowest interest rate of everybody. I hope Scott's listening to this, because we should be paying the lowest interest rate of everybody. Without us, most of the countries don't even work. And then you have the protection factor. Without our military, which is the greatest in the world by far, without our military, you have threats that you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe. You don't have threats because of us, and that's because of NATO. One other thing, and I have to say it so importantly, in the old days, and I used to say I'm the youngest in the room. Now I'm among the older. I hate to say it. I don't feel old, but I'm among the older. But I remember not long ago, 20, 25 years ago, when good news came out about, let's say, the United States. The United States had a great quarter. The United States had a great month. All the stocks went up. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Now when they say the United States had a record quarter, it's unbelievable how well it's doing, all the stocks crash because they say, oh no, inflation, they're going to raise interest rates. And they do. Some of these stupid people like Powell, they raise interest rates. And what they do is they stop you from being successful. It used to be when we had a great quarter, a great month, great earnings, great anything, any good news, the stock market went up. That's the way it's going to be. We got to do that again because that's the way it should be. Now when we have a great month, they want to kill it. Like we did over 5%. People were surprised. We should do 20%. We could do 25%. When we announce good numbers, and the reason is they're so petrified of inflation. And growth doesn't mean inflation. We've had tremendous growth with very low inflation. In fact, growth can fight inflation, proper growth. So we want to get back to the days when we announce great numbers because we're going to be announcing phenomenal. You know, all these factories that are being built at record, thousands of businesses are being built right now. Remember, $18 trillion is invested. I think the second number is 3, and that was China many years ago. Investments in the country from outside. 18 trillion, nobody's ever seen. And that's money coming in and building things, factories. Thousands of businesses are being built, thousands. Hundreds of big factories, car plants are moving back to the United States. They're coming in from Canada. They're coming in from Mexico, from Japan. Japan's coming in and building plants here in order to avoid tariffs. They're coming in from China. They're coming in from all over the world. We have more plants being built now, car plants, than we've ever had built, even in the heyday from the 1940s and 50s. And they're bigger. They don't use renovations anymore where they take an old plant, they rip it down, they build a brand new plant, super modern plant. But it's happening at levels that nobody's ever seen. In 2024, the U.S. built less than 2 million new homes, but Biden admitted more than 8 million new migrants. And those days are over. In 2025, for the first time in 50 years, the United States had reverse migration. Boy, that was nice. And these were criminals that were being taken out of our country because they allowed people to come into our country from jails, from gangs, drug dealers, murderers. 11,888 murderers. We've gotten most of them out. And then ICE gets beat up by stupid people from leadership in Minnesota. We actually are helping Minnesota so much, but they don't appreciate it. Most places do. You know, Washington, D.C. is the safest place now in the United States. It was a very dangerous place to walk, and now you can walk with your wife, your kids, right through the middle of the city. Right now, Washington, D.C. is as safe as it gets. It was one of the most unsafe. I had to admit, we sent in the military, the National Guard. Within 2 months, it was great. Within 3 months, it's like a really great place and a safe place and a beautiful place. It's even been cleaned up. The graffiti's gone. The fences are gone. We don't have to worry about fences anymore. All of the places, the grasses are cut and replaced with new grass in many cases. It's all going to happen in the spring. But Washington and D.C. is beautiful again, and it's safe. New restaurants are opening up. They're all closing. Now you can't get into a restaurant. Restaurants in Washington, D.C. are all opening. Memphis also, Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, Louisiana. We're there for 3 weeks. We've cut the crime down by 64%. Within another month, we'll have virtually no crime there. We can do that all over. We're going to help the people in California. We want to have no crime. I know Gavin was here. I used to get along so great with Gavin when I was president. Gavin's a good guy. And we're going to, if he needed it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd love to see. We did help them a lot in Los Angeles, a lot with the early in my term when they had some problems. But we would love to do it. I will say this, if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, come on in, make us look good. Because we're cutting crime down to nothing. And we're taking people out, career criminals, who are only going to do bad things, and we're bringing them back to their countries. But where we've done it, it's been amazing. And we have a capacity to do it at much greater levels. We're cutting illegal aliens off welfare and other government benefits, and I have directed that starting immediately, there will be no more payments to sanctuary cities because they are really just sanctuaries for criminals. They're really protecting criminals, and those are the ones we have to get out of the country: murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They emptied their mental institutions into the United States. And despite that, we have the lowest crime numbers that we've ever had in the history of the country. Just came out. But equally importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that Somalia, they turned out to be higher IQ than we thought? I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates. They're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil. And they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. The insurance companies are petrified. So they say, just give them the boat. We'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out. We blow them out of the water. We don't have any pirates so much anymore. If we do, they won't be there long. We've cut down with the hitting of the boats that are loaded up with drugs, including submarines. Can you believe they actually buy small? They call mini subs, very fast. They're meant for drugs. We've knocked out 2 of them. The Democrats say they were fishing. You have ruined somebody's fishing weekend. I would say a submarine is not a fishing boat. You don't fish. But we've knocked down drugs by water, the oceans, the sea, by 97.2%. Think of that. And I actually say, who the hell are the 3%? Because I would not want to be piloting one of those boats. We knocked them down, and now we're going to start on land. We're going to knock it all out. The land is the easy part. What we did on sea is incredible, and that's our great military. The situation in Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. I mean, we're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is a failed, it's not a nation. Got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. And then we have this fake congressperson who they just reported is worth $30 million. You believe this? Ilhan Omar, talking about the Constitution that provides me. She comes from a country that's not a country, and she's telling us how to run America. Not going to get away with it much longer, let me tell you. The explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America and Europe have in common. We share it. We share it, but we have to keep it strong. We have to become stronger, more successful, and more prosperous than ever. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of human achievement. We live in an incredible, changing period. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time that we're in. In our hands are technologies that our ancestors could scarcely have. I mean, they couldn't have even dreamt some of the things that we see today. And so rapidly they're produced. I mean, AI, 2 years ago, nobody ever heard of the term, and now everybody's talking about it. And it can have some very good purpose. It could also have some dangerous purpose. And for that, we have to watch out. But some tremendous things are happening because of it. And we're leading by so much. We're doing so well. But opportunities that are bigger and grander than ever before in human history are right before us. It is the pioneers in this room. Many of you in this room are true pioneers. You're truly brilliant people. Just your ability to get a ticket is brilliant because you have about 50 people for every seat. I don't know what. That's Larry. Everything Larry touches turns to gold. He made this very successful. But you're in this room, And some of you are the greatest leaders anywhere in the world. You're the greatest brains anywhere in the world. And the future is unlimited, and to a large part because of you. And we have to protect you, and we have to cherish you. I always say we have to cherish our brilliant people because there aren't many of them. So together with confidence, boldness, and persistence, let us lift up our people, grow our economies, defend our shared destiny, and build a future for our citizens that is more ambitious, more exciting, more inspiring, and greater than the world has ever seen. We're in a position to do things that nobody else has ever even thought of before. And many of the people in this room are the ones that are doing it. And I want to congratulate you, and I'm with you all the way. You can do things that nobody else can even think about. So I congratulate you on your tremendous success. And the United States is back, bigger, stronger, better than ever before. And I'll see you around. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I guess now they're going to take
This
questions.
was supposed to be a
All right.
nice fire chat, Mr. President.
Yes, good.
I
got set up now. I did know.
You made the job for the moderator really easy. Thank you, Mr. President, for your speech. I do have a few follow-up questions, if it's okay. Sure. I don't think I should start with Greenland, maybe. I'll start with the economy. The U.S. economy is doing really, really well. But how to sustain this growth moving forward? Because there's always a recession looming around the corner.
Well, you know, the one thing about economies and recessions is sometimes you get hit unexpectedly and there's nothing you can do about it. All brilliant people, but there's nothing. One example was COVID. We had an economy going at levels like nobody had ever seen my first 2.5, 3 years. And then I heard the word pandemic, not COVID. They came up with that name over a period of time. We won't get into that. But I heard the word pandemic. And I had a poll come out that was so strong just prior to that. And I was with the two best pollsters, McLaughlin and Fabrizio. And they said, sir, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back and ran as president and vice president, they couldn't beat you. And then what happened is the following day, I was told to stay tuned because there's something really bad happening in China. There are bodies laying all over Wuhan, right around that certain building that we talk about. I always said it came from Wuhan. It did come from Wuhan. And they were body bags. We saw it by satellite. And they said, there are strange things happening in China. And so it began. And we ended up with the COVID, and the whole world suffered. We did a phenomenal job. I don't think we got the credit we deserve. We did something that Operation Warp Speed, which some people say was one of the greatest military feats ever. We did a great job. Used our military, used a lot of people. But sometimes you get hit with things, nothing you can do. You get hit with things like that unexpectedly. And we got through it. And when I left, the stock market was higher than it was previous to the COVID coming up. And I called it a great achievement. But things happen. Bad things happen. The things that we can stop are wars if we're smart. That we can stop. Those are a matter of being intelligent and having intelligent people on the other side. Because wars are the worst of all. Wars are worse than anything. But we can stop wars because that's sort of up to us. But things like dust flying in the air, wherever COVID comes from or whatever comes, sometimes you have to be a little bit lucky. But we are poised to have an economy like no other, not only in this country, but anywhere. And you know, when you hear the kind of numbers that I can tell you that Scott Bessent was with me the other day, and he's looking at numbers. He said, I can't. And that's all he's done his whole life, pretty much your whole life. Scott, you weren't going to be a football player, I don't think. Scott was not that great at football, but he was always good at numbers, right? And he was looking at numbers. He said, I've never seen anything like this. We're poised to do things that no other country has ever done. And, you know, luck, I hate to say it, but we need a little luck. We don't want to get hit by something that nobody could have thought. Whoever thought we were going to hit by a pandemic? You know, when I heard the word pandemic, I said, oh, that's an ancient problem. World War I, they lost 100 million people. It actually ended World War I. A lot of people don't know. The Spanish flu in World War I ended the war because all the soldiers were sick. The soldiers were so sick on both sides, and that war was raging, and they were all dying from the Spanish flu. They were sick as dogs. They couldn't fight. So, you know, you don't know how that would have turned out. But so we do, I mean, subject to that, and I always have to put a caveat in for it, but we're poised to have the greatest growth of any large country, I think any country that there's been. When you look at what's happening in the United States, it's really amazing.
Thank you. One thing that maybe keeps you up at night, I know you don't sleep that much anyway, Mr. President, is the debt. The U.S. debt is high, is now the biggest expenditure on your budget. How to get out of that impasse?
Well, the big thing is growth. I mean, growth is the way. If we grow like this, we go from having at $37 trillion. We go from having high debt to low debt. But we also are cutting expenses, you know, the old-fashioned way. We have extraordinary growth. I think we're going to be growing our way out. I think we're going to be paying off debt. We're taking in tremendous money from tariffs fairly. And again, I'm using them judiciously. You know, Switzerland's a case study. I could have gotten much more. I could have asked for much more. But we're using them judiciously. But I think growth, most importantly, and then cutting costs. Now, if you take a look at Minnesota, $19 billion in fraud and other things. People going to airports, they came into the country, they don't have 10 cents, and they're leaving with hundreds of thousands of cash in their bags. When we get to that, and our DOJ, Pam, and Todd, and all the people that work over there, and all of the people that work in here, I can tell you, Scott Bessent is working on that. It's a priority, right? You have your whole team. We're in there looking for where this money is coming from, how much it is. It could be more than $19 billion. Can you believe that? That's just one state. If we were able to cut out 50% of the fraud, 50%, and we should be able to do better than that, we would have a balanced budget without having to talk about even growth. So we have a lot of options, but we're working very hard on that. That's a big deal. It's not just the protests, the fake protests done by agitators and, you know, professional insurrectionists. That's what they are. They're professional troublemakers. But we are looking very strong at the money too in Minnesota and other places.
I think, Mr. President, also the $500 billion invested in artificial intelligence and the frontier technologies last year also were driving growth exponentially in the U.S.
Well, AI has been a big factor. AI is massive. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg showed me a plant where he put it over a map of Manhattan, and it was basically the size of Manhattan. This is not, I said, you got to be kidding. It's a plant that was miles long, miles wide, very high. I don't think it was as high like the Empire State Building, but it was high. And it literally covered most of the island of Manhattan. That's called a big plant. And, you know, when I heard they're going to spend $50 billion building it, I said, you know, if you spend $50 million, you can build a nice little shopping center. If you spend $500 million, you can build a good shopping center. But how do you spend $50 billion? When I looked at this thing, I said, you think you'll be able to do it for that? It's amazing when, you know, some of the plants that I see, and I see them all. And again, so big as we're letting them build their own electric generation. This way we have no problem. And otherwise they'd be complaining. There'd be nobody able to, you know, we have an old grid system. And not only that, they're going to sell at a very cheap price the excess electricity that they create back into our grid. So that'll solve some problems for certain states that don't have enough electricity.
We also know that on the AI, there is fierce competition between the U.S. as the largest economy in the world 27% of the global GDP and 5% of the global population, not doing that badly, and China. And we know that that competition is very tough on AI. I know you're heading to a state visit to China in April. How do you see the U.S.-China relationship moving forward? Are you able to combine this tough competition with also collaboration?
So I've always had a very good relationship with President Xi and with President Putin. Talk about, the larger powers. But I've always had a very good relationship with President Xi of China. He's an incredible man. What he's done is amazing. He's highly respected by everybody. And I do now. Now I have good. It was very severely interrupted by COVID. I used to call it the China virus, but he said, "Do you think you could use a different name?" And I decided to do that because why should we have a problem over that? But I would do that, and they were
a true diplomat, huh?
I became a diplomat for the first time. Well, who taught me that? Marco Rubio. He said, "Let me teach you about diplomacy." Hey, any guy that gets approved by 100% of the votes, think of it. He got liberal Democrats and radical right Republicans to approve him. He's the only one. The next one was lost 45 votes, right? But he got all 100 votes voting for him. And at first I wasn't happy about it. I said, wait a minute, I don't like that. And now it turns out that the Democrats probably wish they didn't do that. And Marco has been fantastic. Marco, stand up, please. You have done a great job as Secretary of State. He's going to go down as the best Secretary of State. And Scott, and we have Susie, who's the first female Chief of Staff, and she's the best Chief of Staff, too. And I see Howard Lutnick, who I know spoke, and Howard's fantastic. Some of the deals we're doing are great. And I want to pay particular attention because we have Chris. And Chris, you got up and spoke, I think. He's the #1 oil man in the world because I was going to put Doug Burgum, who's fantastic. I don't know if Doug's here. Is Doug here? Doug Burgum is fantastic. He said, "Sir, there's one man better than me." And he introduced me to Chris. And he turns out to be. So we're drilling more oil and gas now than we ever have by almost double. Is that right, Chris? And on top of it, we got a lot coming out of Venezuela. So anyway, so we're doing great. The country is just doing great. We have great people. Thank you. And I see other people. We have Steve Witkoff. We have Jared. I got so many people. I'm in trouble because when I go back, they're going to be people with long faces. Sir, you didn't introduce me. I got so many people. And we have a lot of the greatest people anywhere in the world. I know them all. So I won't continue because we'd be here all day.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also know that you're a deal maker, and then maybe coming back to Greenland and Ukraine. What kind of deal in the end do you see between the U.S. And Denmark? Because, I guess you see it now as a negotiation going on, or?
Well, it's costing Denmark hundreds of millions a year to run it. And Denmark's a small country and wonderful people. But, it's very expensive. It's a very big piece of ice. And it's very important. I don't want to repeat the speech, but it's very important that we use that for national and international security. That can create a power that will make it impossible for the bad guys to do anything against the perceived good ones. And it's a great block for Europe, just like, Denmark was supposed to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. They didn't spend the money. They didn't spend anything almost. And we'll see what happens. I just say this. NATO has treated the United States of America very unfairly. We never asked for anything. We never got anything. We actually took care of the needs of NATO for years and years, which I felt was always unfair. So I got NATO to pay because they're rich countries. But I think it's time that NATO step up. We're helping them with Ukraine. Without us, I think Putin would have gone all the way. I think we have it. I think that could have been a World War III, if you want to know the truth. If Kamala was elected or Joe, any one of those, those thinkers, I think you could have ended up in World War III. And I will say Steve Witkoff has been dealing incredibly with But we're not going to have World War III. We want to get it stopped, but we're not going to have World War III. I think if I wasn't elected, I think that could have evolved into World War III. It was a very, very bad situation, and it still is, but it's not that kind of bad. It's bad because so many young people are being killed.
How close do you think there is on an agreement on Ukraine? I had the pleasure of speaking with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner yesterday. I know they're working hard on it. I know that they're also traveling now. Do you see this very close or still?
Well, I hate to say it. I thought that was going to be so. I settled 8 wars plus. And I thought that was going to be one of my easier ones. Not the easiest. Some I settled in a matter of hours because I'm good at that stuff. You know, the United Nations should be doing this. I shouldn't be doing it, but it doesn't matter. It's got to get done, saving a lot of lives. We're saving millions of lives. With Ukraine, Russia, there's tremendous hatred between President Zelensky and President Putin. That's not good. That's not good for settlements. We know from dealing. There's abnormal hatred. With that being said, I think Russia wants to make a deal. I think Ukraine wants to make a deal. And we're going to try getting a deal done. I think, Steve, I think I can say that we're reasonably close. But what happens is oftentimes we'll have a deal with Russia. Russia's set, and President Zelensky will not do it. You saw that when he was in the Oval Office. I was not happy. And then we'll have President Zelensky who wants to make a deal, and Putin doesn't want to make the deal. It's a very difficult balance, and it's big time, and it is, you know, to use a word, it's a bloodbath. It's horrible what's happening. It's a drone war. The drones are killing, you know, thousands of people a week, thousands. We have to get it stopped. So I believe they're at a point now. I'm going to meet with President Zelensky later today. I believe they're at a point now where they can come together and get a deal done. And if they don't, they're stupid. That goes for both of them. And I know they're not stupid. But if they don't get this done, they are stupid. So I don't want to insult anyone, but you got to get this deal done. Too many people are dying. It's not worth it.
President Sisi is sitting on the first row here. He spoke earlier today and also complimented you on the Gaza deal. I think there will be a signing tomorrow. Of course, there are different views on this, but how important do you think this signing is on the Board of Peace? And do you think this is going to sustain? Do you think we now will see Gaza reconstructed and the billions of US dollars invested?
I do. I mean, I think we have peace in the Middle East. There are some little situations like Hamas, and Hamas has agreed to give up their weapons. Now, you know, they were born with a weapon in their hand, so it's not easy to do. When they were born with a rifle in their hand. It's not an easy thing for them, but that's what they agreed to. They've got to do it. And we're going to know, Jared, over the next 2 or 3 days, certainly over the next 3 weeks, whether or not they're going to do it. If they don't do it, they'll be blown away very quickly. They'll be blown away. You know, we have 59 countries that are part of that whole peace deal. And some of those countries aren't even they're near the Middle East, but they're not in the Middle East traditionally. And they want to come in and take out Hamas. They want to come in. They want to do whatever they can. There's a problem with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we'll see what happens there. But that's a problem. But there are these little flames, but there's peace in the Middle East. Now, had we not gone in and knocked out with those big, beautiful, we just ordered 25 brand new ones, the latest and the greatest, the B-2 bomber. Think of them, they went in there at 2 o'clock in the morning with no moon, no light, no nothing, and every single one of those massive bombs hit its target, 100,000-pound bombs hit its target, every one of them. And then on top of it, from a submarine 300 miles away, we hit the sites with tomahawks, which is an unbelievable weapon. So, you know, we did our job. If we didn't do that, you would have never had peace in the Middle East. And the countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar could never have, and others could never have signed anything because you would have had this dark cloud, and the dark cloud was Iran with nuclear. Iran would, if we didn't take them out, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 months. They were very close to having the nuclear weapon, and we hit them hard. And it was a total obliteration. If they may try again, but they're going to have to try from a different area because that area was obliterated. Incredible thing we did. And because we did that, we were able to make peace. If we didn't do that, I would say, Jared and Steve, if we didn't do that, there was no chance of making peace because the countries I just named and other countries could have never signed off. They were afraid. They were afraid. We had a bully. The bully was Iran, the bully of the Middle East. They used to call it for years. They were the bully of the Middle East. They're not the bully of the Middle East anymore.
Mr. President, I know you even had to change plane last night, so I guess you didn't have much sleep, but I think you're. But your energy is still there. I know you have several bilateral meetings. I know you're also hosting a reception. So thank you so much for coming back to Davos. Thank you so much. It's highly appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, would you consider a unilateral takeover? U.S. say you won't use force, but how the other means? You say no.
All right, so I don't know. I'm going to have to check the times on the rest of the events and what the breaks are going to be, but he is having another one shortly. But my gosh, my gosh, I'm sure the liberal heads are exploding all across the interwebs right now because wow, I cannot even believe he went with some of those things. Some of the notes, I mean, there's too much to cover. He went on right about 8:35, 8:36. So he spoke for just about an hour and a half after flying out, turning around, going back to Washington, getting back out of plane, a second plane, and then flying out. That's just incredible. And now he's going to do more, and then he's going to fly all the way back. And I'm like, I can't keep up with him. And he's older than I am. So it's absolutely crazy. So a couple of things that I took note of. And I'm going to go over it with you as soon as I get back. I got a text and give me 90 seconds.
Back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, so in going over this speech and understanding what he said, I know it's going to ruffle a lot of feathers. There are going to be a lot of people all kinds of pissed off. And the first thing I wanted to make a point of was the arrogance that some people will take as a put-off, the complete boldness that people will take as a put-off because of one reason, because they have done their best, including the people he was talking to. They have done everything they possibly can to emasculate men. And what you just saw, what you just saw was a alpha male on the stage. You know, an alpha male that people, men and women, used to aspire to be around until they started with all this toxic masculinity bullcrap. And he was arrogant, and he was confident, and he held no punches. And I'm sure you guys saw, it seemed like the coffee or something kicked in, and he was telling people exactly what was on his mind. And that was probably a restrained Trump. Who knows what he says behind closed doors? A man's man, a woman's man, telling you basically, if there was a subtitle to what he said, the subtitle would have been, "Don't let me have to take off my belt. I'll use it. I will use this belt and I will whoop your hiney. Don't make me have to do it." Which is, shocking to people because they're not used to that. Let's put you in timeout over here in the corner and daddy's not happy with you. No, 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 no. Daddy said, "Don't make me take off my belt." And we haven't heard that kind of bravado, that kind of male assertion in a long time. I mean, think of it's just not seen anywhere. It's not hardly seen in movies. I mean, in the movies that do have male superstars and things of that nature, they're few and far between. Having been an athlete, I understand that was the commonplace. Some people took, my phone's just going crazy. Some people took it as being a braggart, an a-hole, where at the same time, we all know the big dog, that's just how the big dog is until somebody can take on the big dog. And so I loved him because it wasn't so much beating his own chest as he was beating the chest for America. This is who we are. You have taken advantage of us. We're not going to take it anymore. And don't let me have to take off the belt, because I will. In addition to that, and you really want me to talk about Greenland, huh? We're going to get it one way or the other. And it's funny because if you look on CNBC, the headline on CNBC is "Stocks Rebound After President Trump Rules Out Military Action." Did you hear President Trump rule out military action? Is he taking questions? Hold on.
Well, we're going to be making a lot of money for Venezuela, and they'll be able to take care of their people. And she's doing a very good job.
Are you willing to fight Greenland? Macron's proposal, a NATO mission in Greenland.
I made that very clear.
Why are you disrespecting the president?
We have a great relationship with NATO, but NATO has to step up.
You're very disrespectful of Europe and the UK, sir. Why?
No, I'm not, but they have to change their ways, or they're going to.
Why? Trade with your allies makes no sense.
Between immigration and energy, if they don't change, bad things will happen to them.
Mr. President, what's your plan on Africa? Mr. President, what's your plan on Africa?
Why genocide in South Africa, and are you willing to engage with the South African government?
Well, no, what's happening in South Africa is terrible. It's a terrible situation. What they're doing to people, a certain group of people, is unbelievable. You wouldn't think it could happen today.
What would it make you believe that there is no white genocide, Mr. President, in South Africa?
Well, we have seen the numbers, we've seen the records, and it is taking place.
Mr. President, Mr. President, Macron's proposal, a NATO mission in Greenland is...
We'll hang with this, and when we can catch the comments, we will.
Bad things will happen to you.
Mr. President, what's your plan on Africa? Mr. President, what's your plan on Africa?
No white genocide in South Africa, and are you willing to engage with the South African government?
Well, no, what's happening in South Africa is terrible. It's a terrible situation. What they're doing to people, a certain group of people, is unbelievable. You wouldn't think it could happen today.
What would it make you believe that there is no white genocide, Mr. President, in South Africa?
Well, we have seen the numbers, we've seen the records, and it is taking place.
Mr. President, what do you think of Macron's proposal, a NATO mission in Greenland is...
Well, we said he's going to dominate the 2 days.
You know, what's interesting is, like, for these reporters, what an opportunity, right? That they have a commander-in-chief that's willing to take all their questions. That just is extremely...
Yeah, the dude talked for an hour and a half, and I look up and I'm like, is he taking more questions? Wow, absolutely wow. So anyway, what I was saying is, I don't find it bragging. I find it to be defending America, letting people know we are no longer the pansy. You're not going to keep reaching into our pockets over and over. The whole thing about Greenland, as I said, the headline on CNBC says that Trump rules out military action. I didn't hear him rule out military action. What I heard him say, and you guys can correct me, is I gotta have it. I'm demanding it. And basically, if you don't, I'm not going to be happy. And I didn't hear that as being ruling out military action or taking it, but that's how they took it. I love how he did on an international stage. Just imagine this, the President of the United States on an international stage where every single news media across the world has a camera fixated on him. Not MSNBC, not CNN, not Fox. Everybody is watching him. And he walks up there and says, Ilhan Omar is a scumbag and a thief. The Somalis got to go. And the big one, the elections were rigged. See, I've heard, as you know, we've covered President Trump. We've all heard him say the elections are rigged. I can't recall a world stage of this prominence with everybody watching, some of them who might have actually been involved, where he walked out and said the election was rigged. And we're going to get to that. So right now, there's got to be a lot of people who are pooping in their depends. There have got to be a lot of people across the world, not just in America, that are wondering what's next. Because at this point, he's going to keep people guessing as to what's happening, even in those questionings. He goes, you don't want to know what's about to happen. And I think at this point, they can't doubt him. They must understand this guy's a wild card, and he's a wild card not because he's crazy, but because he's capable, he has the resources, he has done it a couple of times. And so when you get somebody like that, it's one thing for people to make red lines like Obama and Biden did and to get them challenged over and over again and don't do anything. People around the world right now know if he says it, we already know he can do it, which he outlined to them. Yeah, we flew to B-2s, the bombers up, boom, 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 and we came home. We went in, we snatched Maduro, we got the best weapons. He's just reinforcing it. Don't F with me. If I tell you, you got to do this, and you got to do it by this day, you better do it. He even told Canada, you talked a lot of crap about me. I heard you. You might want to remember this the next time you open your mouth. And we're just not used to it. It even takes me by surprise. I'm like, oh my God, did he just say that? Imagine how they feel. Now, a lot of the things that happen, and it's really interesting to me, is so many people on X, the Panicus, the Black Pillars, the Rhinos. Oh, why is he worried about foreign policy? Well, until I can take care of them and make sure they are in line, then I'm going to come back home and open up the belt loops and do something here. And I think that's what today was. Today was, don't screw with us. We're going to get what we want. Our economy is flying. You need our consumers. You need us. You can't make money if we don't make money. We're going to go to 5 and 6 or more percent GDP. And we're going to expect you, and you to pay up. If you want us, you've seen our toys, right? Our toys are really good. We can parachute into a country and pull somebody out and not even get anybody shot. So you want our toys, you're going to have to pay. And it just reminded me of like, yeah, he's from New York, but I'm waiting for someone to make the alignment here and say, did it sound like you were listening to a mob boss? Yeah, it kind of did. Your godfather wants you to do this thing for me. I need this thing called Greenland. Now, you want to do this thing for me. Your godfather's asking you for a favor here. And I don't want to have to whack you. I don't want to have to whack you. I can. And then the same thing with Gaza. Yeah, we're going to go do in there. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to get all this stuff done. And as you're hearing all of this, one thing should be going off in your mind. And that one thing is, why shouldn't the world be this way? Why shouldn't the world be peaceful? Why shouldn't we all enjoy prosperity? Why shouldn't we? I told you Robin wants to go on vacation. I'm like, Robin, I don't think we'd feel safe there. Maybe we should try here. Why shouldn't we just be safe? Who's causing the problems right now? Why are these sand bunnies all wanting to do all kinds of bad things to women and children? Why can't we just coexist and have, a good life? Why do we have to fight? Why do we have to do these things? Why do you have to steal from our people? And he was talking about the stock market. He goes, it used to be when we did well, the stock market went up. True. And now we do well, the stock market goes down. How? How is that manipulated that way? Because they need to keep America suppressed. Unfortunately, too many people in this country got used to it. They got used to it. They are okay with suppressing America. You don't need to be that prosperous. You don't need to be that powerful. Everybody keeps complaining on X about the boomers. They destroyed it for the rest of us. No, we didn't. Just to the contrary. We could all help you guys get better if you stop whining, complaining, and get your asses to work and enjoy prosperity the same way the boomers did. That's where the difference is. We didn't shut the door behind you. We didn't make the average age of home ownership go to 40 overnight. You did. And what Trump is doing is saying there's no reason why you can't enjoy the same prosperity. When you're comparing what your parents bought at a super low price back then, the one thing you don't compare is what did your parents do? They weren't out at, running around in Minnesota in 5-degree weather protesting. Your dad was working. And mom was home with the kids. Mom was home taking care of the kids, and you decided that was bad. Somehow that became a bad thing. Oh, America's so regressive. They just want women home barefoot and pregnant. If you want what boomers have, then why don't you do what boomers did? You have the recipe. You complain about it, but you're like, you know what? Man, my parents had the right thing going on. Mom made sure the home was taken care of. She made sure all the kids had what they wanted, and Dad busted his ass. Dad was like this guy that showed up once in a while, like at 6 o'clock, ate dinner, and then we didn't see him anymore because he was busting his hump. My dad left the house at about 6 o'clock in the morning. Didn't see him until like 6:30, come home for dinner, have dinner, put us to bed, and that was it for about like an hour and a half until on the weekends. But you don't want to do what boomers did, but you complain what boomers have. Does that make any sense to anybody? And I'm not besmirching or talking down against any woman who wants to make it in the corporate world or anything like that. That is your prerogative. But at the same time, these younger people can't complain that life was different back then. There were only two sexes. Hey, you either squatted or you stood to pee. That was it. Dad worked. Mom took care of the home that they owned. Had the babies, your brothers, your sisters. I went to a Catholic high school, and everybody was a Roman Catholic and Irish, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. How did we do it back then? Well, we did it the way President Trump just said. We were prosperous. My family came from nothing. My dad came over from Jamaica, ended up getting his citizenship and joining the army and all. It's insane. And so what I see President Trump trying to do is not from a nostalgic perspective. That worked. Where did we go off the axis and things started going crazy and men starting wearing dresses and men are bad? And in every movie, the guy, even on television commercials, Mom, Dad, I mean, honey, how do you do this? Well, then again, I lived that too because Robin left for 5 days and I didn't even know how to turn things on, but that's my fault. That's not her fault. And I just loved it. I just loved that this so-called toxic masculinity was on display for the entire world, because that's what we need in this country. Elon Musk put out a tweet this morning. I think he said it this morning. And in the tweet this morning, he basically said that we're done for. We are done for as a country because Chuck Grassley and Lisa Murkowski and what's the other one's name? Susan Collins and Rand Paul don't want to break the filibuster. They don't want to vote for the SAVE Act. They don't want to codify President Trump's executive orders. I'm thinking to myself, what in the hell is wrong with you people? How come you like to lose? Oh, probably because it's more profitable. Ashley sent me something, and they're holding right now the contempt hearing for Bill and Hillary Clinton. So instead of like starting a new stream, I'm going to show it for a while. I mean, I know we've been going for 2 hours, but let's see how this thing goes. And from there, maybe President Trump will come back on. So let me see if I can put this on. I may have to do some different. Oh, wait a minute. I know what I'll do. Hold on 1 second. Here's what I'm going to do. While I'm getting this configured, I want you to hear this speech this morning made by Scott Bessent at Davos.
Years of failed policies have fostered a situation in which supply chains have become highly concentrated and vulnerable to both disruption and manipulation. President Trump's leadership is tending to these vulnerabilities. President Trump's leadership gathered these nations, and President Trump's leadership continues to drive the dialogue. In the G20, there's a world of parallel prosperity from which all will benefit. The United States is a premier destination for global capital. Thanks to President Trump, as I have often said, our country now has the most favorable tax, energy, and regulatory environment in the world, ensuring even stronger returns for partners who invest in America. And as we assume leadership of the G20, our agenda is one that we wish not just for ourselves, but for all of our allies. Grow, baby, grow. Growth is the only path out of this mountain of debt, and we can only grow together by expanding trade that is fair. And thanks to President Trump, America's first approach to rebalancing global trade, we all have the opportunity to do so. I look forward to taking your questions on trade and any other subjects.
Thanks, everybody. So let's go to the room first. If we can please, the first question, please state your name and outlet. Gentleman over here on the right in the black turtleneck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. My name is Urs Gerger. I'm with the Swiss Weekly Weltwoche. We know that from previous statements that you value Swiss neutrality very highly. Our government every so often is taking away off neutrality. What would that mean in terms of our bilateral relationships if Switzerland more and more would side with EU, for example, or would depart from our traditional neutrality?
Well, let's talk about what Switzerland emulating the failed EU economic policies would do. Switzerland, a country of 9 million people, amazingly, the box is so far above its weight class. It is an industrial powerhouse. It is home to, as I said yesterday, a thriving middle class. And I would worry if you started emulating the EU policies of administration, bureaucracy, and economic sclerosis. And it would be very disappointing if Switzerland decided to get on the EU bandwagon, talk first, and not think about the consequences later.
Thank you. Let's move to the next question, please. Front row, yellow tie, name and outlet, please.
Edward Lawrence from Fox News.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. So the president says he's going to put a 10% tariff on Greenland starting February 1st. It goes up to 25%. How concerned are you that this is going to start a trade war with Europe? And is it worth risking the U.S. economy for Greenland?
Well, I'm not going to get ahead of the president. The president obviously believes that national security is economic security. Economic security is national security. And we're not putting a 10% tariff on Greenland. We're putting a 10% tariff on the 8 countries that chose to send troops to Greenland. I mean, for those countries to activate their troops, I'm not sure what signal that's supposed to send. It seems pretty quixotic to me. President Trump has made it clear that we will not outsource our national security or our hemispheric security to any other countries. Our partner, the UK, is letting us down with the base on Diego Garcia, which we had shared together for many, many years, and they want to turn it over to Mauritius. So President Trump is serious here. Just as I said after Liberation Day last year, I would tell everyone, take a deep breath. Do not have this reflexive anger that we've seen and the bitterness. Why don't they sit down, wait for President Trump to get here and listen to his argument? Because I think they're going to be persuaded.
If I could, on the Supreme Court today, you went to a Supreme Court hearing. Why shouldn't Fed Chairman Jerome Powell go?
I am a political appointee, and Chair Powell is not. Chair Powell says that the Fed must stay above politics and the politics cannot get enmeshed into the Fed. I have become very frustrated with the Fed for refusing to do an internal investigation. I think all of this could have been avoided. I have been calling for an internal investigation at the Fed since last summer, and even before that. So there are 2 things at stake here. One, does the president have the authority to remove Governor Cook for alleged malfeasance? 2, did Governor Cook commit mortgage fraud? I am not sure why Chair Powell would go and support Governor Cook when the Fed has not undertaken an examination of whether she did in fact commit mortgage fraud. If she did, she is stealing from the American people every day because she has a GSE-backed mortgage. And as I've said before, it is very unfortunate that on Chair Powell's watch, we will have seen between 4 and 6 governors and bank presidents have to step down for ethical lapses. Now, 4 to 6 may not seem like much. That is out of 19. I can tell you, as someone who was on Wall Street, if you were the leader of a Wall Street firm, you would have a failure to supervise problem. So again, I think that his sitting in the front row of the Supreme Court is a political statement, and I agree with him. The Fed should not be politicized. He is politicizing the Fed. I went in my capacity as a political appointee in the Trump administration.
Governor calls you smug. Are you smug?
Yeah, I think it's very, very ironic that Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and Davos is a perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. And I can tell my message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. And I was told he was asked to give a speech on his signature policies, but he's not speaking. Because what have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Thank you very much.
Let me know if you need any further clarification.
And that goes for all of you, if you need any more clarification on that. Next question, please, gentlemen. Second row with glasses, name and outlet, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Jamie Keaton, Associated Press. Thank you, Secretary, for coming to see us again. Yesterday, the S&P 500 dropped more than 2%. Gold and silver hit new highs, and the European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that U.S. tariffs over Greenland were a mistake, and President Macron has mentioned the use of the EU's anti-coercion measures. All after you said, as you've said this morning as well, that people need to take a breath over this situation. What conversations have you had with EU and other counterparts to help stabilize markets and to help convince them to take a breath? And I'd just like to add, how concerned are you that institutional investors in Europe may be pulling out of treasuries, such as from pension funds in Denmark and elsewhere?
Well, the size, Denmark's investment in U.S. Treasury bonds, like Denmark itself, is irrelevant. That it's less than $100 million. They've been selling treasuries for years. I'm not concerned at all. Again, as Treasury Secretary, I see our Treasury auctions. We've had record foreign investment. And also, as I said yesterday, I think it is very difficult to disaggregate any of the noise around Greenland, around these inflammatory statements by President Macron, by President van der Leyen, from what we have seen in the Japanese bond markets. We saw a 6 standard deviation move in Japanese bonds, which has spilled over to other markets. And I've been in touch with my Japanese economic colleagues, and I am assured that they will take measures to stabilize that market. And just so everyone knows, that this notion that Europeans would be selling U.S. assets came from a single analyst at Deutsche Bank. Of course, the fake news media, led by the Financial Times, amplified it, and the CEO of Deutsche Bank called to say that Deutsche Bank does not stand by that analyst report.
No comment, no contact with European officials at all?
I'm waiting for President Trump to arrive, and that will be done at his level.
Great, thank you. Let's take the next question, please. We'll move to the side of the room. Sir, right here. Name and outlet, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stefan Lanz, biggest news media of Switzerland, 20 minutes. Have there been, can you give us an update on the trade negotiations and tariff negotiations with Switzerland? Have there been talks already? Will there be talks? Will you have meetings with homologues from the Swiss Federal Council?
Yeah, I'm seeing President Parmalat today, who I have a very good relationship with. We got to know each other. In 2025, I find him to be very economically sophisticated, on trade, on economics. He's a fantastic advocate for the French people. And I think with his leadership, that we will be able to land a trade deal that is fair for the American people and ensures the continued prosperity of Switzerland.
That's great. Thank you. We'll take the next question. Sir, right here, second row, name and outlet, please.
Yes, thank you. Holger Ahlich, Swiss business publication Handelszeitung. Mr. Secretary, I listened yesterday to your session at Davos where you said US needs to take Greenland to not to be drawn into a major conflict, but by aiming at taking Greenland, aren't you creating that conflict with your allies in Europe? Thank you.
I think that we are asking our allies to understand that Greenland needs to be part of the United States. And just a little history lesson, the United States bought the U.S. Virgin Islands from Denmark during World War I. And I will remind everyone that Denmark remained neutral during World War I. They actually sold quite a bit to the Germans. But the Danish understood then the importance of the U.S. Virgin Islands. They were worried about the German ramifications if the war spread to the Caribbean, and the U.S. needed the U.S. Virgin Islands. They wanted a calm Caribbean after purchasing the Panama Canal from the French.
Great. Let's move to the next question, please. Let's go back to this side of the room. In the glasses, second row, name and outlet, please. Thank you. As a warning, everyone, we have about 5 minutes left. The schedule's a little tight today, so we'll have time for about 2 or 3 more questions at the most. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Alina Trabatoni, Montel News. So tariffs and trade actions, in theory, strengthen the dollar, and since LNG is priced in dollars, could a stronger dollar make US LNG more expensive for European buyers in euro terms? And isn't there concern that European markets could look elsewhere for suppliers?
Well, your question doesn't make sense, because if you just said it was priced in dollars, then why would they look elsewhere for supplies? If oil comes from Saudi, it's priced in dollars. If oil comes from the North Sea, it's priced in dollars. So I don't think I understand the question.
LNG, but I mean, they could get better deals elsewhere.
Well, I think you're tripping on your own question, that there's a global price for oil, and the only way to get a better deal elsewhere is to buy sanctioned oil from Venezuela, sanctioned oil from Iran, and sanctioned oil from Russia. I will point out that the EU, 4 years into the Ukraine-Russia conflict, continues to fund the Russian war machine by buying cheap Russian oil. In 2018, President Trump warned the Europeans, do not build Nord Stream 2. Do not buy Russian oil. And guess what gave Vladimir Putin the war chest to fund this war? The European purchases of Russian oil.
Great. Thank you. We'll move to the next question, please. I'm going to give some up to the back. Gentleman back here, please. Orange lanyard, the beard? Yeah, yes, beard. Name and outlet, please. Microphone's coming from this side.
Thank you for the floor. Raphael Zwallen, Swiss News Agency. I have a question on trade, and my understanding you would like to export more agricultural products and cars to Europe under American standards, but the European standards are different. So are you asking European partners to change the standards, or do you respect that in Europe we may have other standards?
Well, I think that we can look at global standards. For instance, our partners in Japan agreed that U.S. standards are to remove a lot of their onerous standards. Let's be clear, Europe is a regulatory morass that is built on bureaucracy and layering of rules that constrain economic activity and economic growth. As we've seen from the Draghi report, that Europe taxes itself, I believe it's 50% on goods, 100% on services intra-Europe. So I think that Europe should break down the intra-Europe trade barriers, and I think that they should break down the external trade barriers, because what we find is these artificial standards are called non-tariff trade barriers, and that they are a major problem throughout the world.
That's great, and this is going to be the last question then today, I think. We'll conclude it up here, back in the front row, please, sir. With laptop, name and outlet.
Hi, Laurent Thomé with Agence France Presse. A couple of questions, if I may. Could you tell us if President Trump, what happened with Air Force One, and if you think, if President Trump will be here on time for his meetings and his speech? And this morning, President Macron's office said that France wants a NATO mission, a NATO exercise in Greenland. What would you have to say about that?
Couple of things. I believe President Trump is going to be about 3 hours late. I haven't seen the updated schedule. And that if this is what all President Macron has to do when the French budget is in shambles, I would suggest that he focuses on other things for the French people.
Would you take a question from the UK, special relationship? Go on, one question.
Sure. We'll have one last question, very, very eloquently asked. If we could have the microphone. Microphone woman's left. Here, feel free to use my microphone.
Hi, Sue Chan from The Telegraph in London. Sir Keir Starmer has irked the president on issues such as Chagos, as you mentioned, the digital services taxes, and of course Greenland.
And Diego Garcia.
Yes, of course. Are these issues tied to more progress on UK-US trade ties, and are any more trade talks scheduled? Thank you.
I haven't seen that any more trade talks are scheduled. As you know, UK stepped up. They became the model for the first trade deal. And as a result, as always with President Trump, the first deal is the best deal. And because of the special relationship, UK got a very low rate. I think that we are continuing to negotiate, but that there have been some glitches in the trade deal. I am sure that the Starmer government will push forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the time, everybody. We'll stay in touch. And
all right, so I think you're getting the feeling right now that the entirety of the Trump administration decided that they were going to go to Davos and basically just whoop up on people, because I've never seen Scott Bessent look that forceful either, and he looked like he was ready just to spank. All right, so I put up a poll in who wants to see this Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton House committee hearing that's going on right now. Just to warn you, it's one of these hearings that's 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. You're going to see a lot of theatrics, a lot of BS, but 75% of you say you want to see it because obviously it's not even on TV anywhere. So let me go ahead and cue that up. I'm only like 15 seconds into it. That's all you've missed. You're going to see the entirety of it. Let me hit the start button on it so you can enjoy this. And we're ready to go. Here we go with the hearing.
The DOJ is the same exact subpoena. Elaine Maxwell said she won't do it. Bring her in then.
You're out of order, Ms. Lee. You're out of order. So we were going to depose Ghislaine Maxwell, February 9th.
Where are the contempt charges, Mr. Chairman?
You're out of order too, Mr. Garcia. And we will proceed with that deposition. Ms. Lee said the Clintons just missed their deadline by a week. We have been negotiating with the Clinton attorneys for 5 months.
Mr. Chairman,
5 months.
Whose time are we speaking on right now?
This is my time. This is my time. I recognize myself. So
all right. So I'm seeing some questions in the chat. So let me do the setup quick here. So the setup here is Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were given subpoenas to come in and talk about the Epstein stuff. You know, everybody a couple of months ago, Epstein. So we're like, all right, well, let's go ahead and do this Epstein stuff. So they subpoena a guy who's got pictures swimming in pools with girls. And they're like, how about you come in and bring your wife because she's been there too. And let's see what you guys have to say. And the Democrats were like, no, not them. We meant like those guys over there. We need to protect Hillary and Bill at all costs. So the day of their hearing or their grand inquisition, both Hillary and Bill said, no, go pound sand. We're not coming. What do you mean you're not coming? That's the same reason we put Steve Bannon and Pete Navarro in jail, because they didn't come to a subpoena. And Bill Clinton said, no, kiss it. Not going to do it. Not going to show up. Hillary, she didn't even say anything, just didn't show up at all. A couple days ago, Bill Clinton's attorney said, all right, we'll talk to you, but you got to come to my house. You got to come up to New York. You got to interview me up there. It will not be under oath and it can't be recorded. Well, what the hell is that? Not under oath and you can't record it. So you mean you want to have a phone call? I mean, what the hell does that mean? So now they have decided with a referral that they're going to file contempt charges against Hillary and Bill, following the same model where they put Steve Bannon and Pete Navarro in jail. Same thing, the exact same thing. And now this hearing that you're watching is the contempt hearing for charges to be filed for them to be arrested. So you're going to see a lot of theatrics. You're going to see a lot of people pissed off. They're going to be going nuts. I mean, it might make for some good popcorn. I don't know. I mean, I think Comer at this point just needs to get it done. So I just wanted to give you the background on what you're about to see, because it's going to get good. All right, here we go.
1 minute, but
you used your full 5 minutes, sir.
no, I haven't used the 5 minutes, Mr. Garcia. So if does any other member seek recognition on the underlying bill? Ms. Luna.
So I think this is really important for everyone to get context, and also I just actually talked to Todd Blanche this morning. And as we proceed in this committee today, I wanted to give an update, but also to let you all know that Todd Blanche has told me that he's willing to talk to any of you. And I think it would be very important as we proceed with the seriousness of this investigation, specifically pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein, that there's open dialogue directly with the DOJ. When I went to move to hold Garland in contempt of Congress, part of the issue was he wasn't even willing to talk to Congress, period, at least not some of the members that were concerned about some of those audio tapes. But specifically pertaining to the Jeffrey Epstein update. As of right now, what I've been told by Mr. Blanche is that the files, and I think in total it was over 5 million files, actually have finished review at the DOJ. They've had 500 attorneys from NSD, the Southern District of Florida, SDNY, and the FBI, basically working on this 6 days a week to get these files appropriately redacted with victim information. But specifically what the hang-up is for the file release is the judge in New York that issued, that made the order from the SDNY's prosecutor's office, Jay Clayton, basically certified under oath that there would be a review to protect some of the victim information. And so that's part of the reason why it has, I guess, been more of a delay. I do think that this information needs to be released, but it's important to provide context that unless we're going to bring in the judge in New York, which I agree with him, I do think that there needs to be a proper review of the documents if it's pertaining to victim information. It's just important to know that context. But I would be happy to, Garcia, I'd be happy to facilitate that phone call, give you his personal cell phone. He said he would actually like to talk to all of you guys. And I would encourage you guys to actually engage in that conversation, because I do think this is important. And then also to a last update, I was told, and I've been trying to obtain information of one victim specifically. If you have victims that specifically want their files, they will actually take those names and get whatever files they can to them. So some of the Democrats are working with some of the victims. I'm working with some of them, but it's important to know for context. So I yield my time.
Very, very good. And would you yield a couple of, you got 2 minutes left, but I just want to make clear, like most everyone on this committee, I do a lot of interviews, and I have stated repeatedly, publicly, on conservative networks, liberal networks, and everything in between, that we want the Epstein documents released. And I appreciate the update from Ms. Luna on the progress. They have been complying. We all wish that it was moving much faster, but there are a lot of documents. And if you'll remember the last document dump that the Department of Justice released, there were many people on this committee, on the Democrat side, that were very critical, saying there weren't enough redactions. So they are making triple and quadruple sure that the victim's personal information is redacted. Now, do any other members wish to be heard? Chair recognizes Mr. Mfume.
Mr. Chairman, I yield to the ranking member Garcia.
Thank you, sir. Representative Luna, I appreciate the statements, but I just want to be clear, that is a lie, and here is why. Mr. Blanche said that they've been reviewing the documents since the passage of the law, the Connor-Massey law. We have had a legal subpoena in place since the summer, since July. It's been the job of the DOJ to comply with this law since a subpoena passed the subcommittee of this body. Since that subpoena passed in July, we've received 33,000 documents, of which 99% of them were already public documents. And so when we talk about complying with the law, you have to talk about complying with the very subpoena that this committee actually passed in a bipartisan way. And so Mr. Blanche is talking about the Epstein Files law, which we should have received all the documents already per the actual law that was voted on. There has been little to zero production of this committee's requests. And so Mr. Blanche is wrong, and he's not being truthful to this committee and to you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I yield remaining time to Ms. Summer, who has the underlying motion, and I know that you said that we would be dealing with that. I just don't think she had enough time to explain her position on it.
Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mfumi. I actually do appreciate that. And I would like to really emphasize that 1% of the fouls is insulting. It's insulting. In fact, when we consider that Pam Bondi herself has publicly stated that the fouls exist. She publicly stated that she had already given Donald Trump that information. So it is a little bit concerning that you have not moved in the way that you said you would. This type of energy could be well spent on the DOJ. It could be well spent on not just saying that you want us to release the fouls. You have power here. This markup is evidence that you were never serious about an honest bipartisan investigation, that you always intended to use this as a one-sided political hit job. Because if you had your way, we actually would have recessed this summer before we were able to force that bipartisan subpoena through the Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement. So when we think about this kangaroo court and the dishonesty that's happening right here, right? It dishonors the integrity of our committee and the survivors who have put themselves at risk for justice. We all remember the round table where many of us sat and listened to the survivors. We listened to their stories, and one of them spoke and said that she doesn't know if we're good liars or if we're telling the truth. But for the first time, she is hoping that something actually happens here. We left that roundtable, and Mr. Coomer, you yourself said that you wanted to honor those victims, to let Pam Bondi off the hook, to let others who are obviously in those fouls off the hook is unacceptable. We cannot investigate this fully if we do not have the full fouls. We cannot see all there is to see if the DOJ is not complying. We cannot move forward. Being in the minority party gives us limited options for actions, and we all must be unwilling to wait if you are not going to subpoena the fouls. So I thank you, Mr. Mfume, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back also.
Do any other Mr. Gosar?
Yes, I yield to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gosar, for yielding. First of all, let's go back. When this started, everyone was demanding that we subpoena the Epstein estate. That wasn't in the discharge petition, but I issued a subpoena to the estate. When we met with the victims, when we met privately for 2 hours, Miss Lee was there and Miss Crockett and, more than half the committee. They were demanding that we subpoena the estate, and we did. We got every document from the estate. There were people who said, oh, there are going to be a lot of questions answered. There'll be names and all. We've subpoenaed every document, every picture, everything from the estate. We never held back. We've been serious. We've all supported the full release of the documents. As I've stated many times publicly, we wish the process was going quicker. That's a lot of documents, a lot of redactions, a lot of eyes have to be put on this. So the Department of Justice is complying. Now, with respect to Maxwell and the Clintons are not treated differently. Maxwell was she was willing to appear, but made very clear she would take the Fifth Amendment. The Clintons refused to appear. And one of the proposals that Clinton made was if we would let Hillary Clinton off, then Mr. Garcia and I could travel to Mr. Clinton's house and bring one staffer and take notes, but no transcript. That's not even a thing, and you all know that. The media, I'm sure, would require a transcript. There's no real investigation without a transcript. So, what few counter proposals the Clintons' massive legal team has made aren't acceptable, and I don't think anyone is going to stand up here and willing to publicly argue that they were. So does any other member seek recognition? Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The American people deserve full transparency
and anyone who has relevant information about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes must be compelled to come forward and share it with this committee. Wealth and power cannot shield people from accountability from this committee. It is the victims of these horrific crimes who deserve protection, not Jeffrey Epstein and the people associated with him. We all agree. We want to hear from former President Bill Clinton. But committee Republicans have failed to conduct a serious investigation. For instance, they refused to hold Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt for failure to release 99% of the Epstein files on a bipartisan law that we all passed on the House floor. And B, that had a deadline. And B, they refused to hold Ghislaine Maxwell accountable for defying this committee's subpoenas. We all know that President Trump has a long-standing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. His administration continues to obstruct the release of the Epstein files for this reason. We've seen photos of them together. Even Elon Musk posted, @Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason why they have not been made public. President Trump's own Mar-a-Lago club appears to come up often in connection to Jeffrey Epstein. From reporting, we know that Epstein was deeply involved with Mar-a-Lago. He was a frequent visitor to the club for years. The club sent employees, usually young women, to Epstein's mansion for massages, manicures, and other spa services. Staff members from the club made frequent calls to Epstein's home in Palm Beach, and on these calls, Epstein engaged in sexually suggestive behavior, such as exposing himself. And in 2000, Ghislaine Maxwell recruited Epstein's trafficking victim from Mar-a-Lago, where she was working as an employee. This committee must also investigate what Mar-a-Lago club members and the staff knew about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Getting documents from Mar-a-Lago is about uncovering evidence, holding these people accountable, and doing right by the victims of these horrific crimes. So we are all for making sure that we hear from everyone. I don't care if you're a Democrat, I don't care if you're a Republican. I'm tired of rich people trying to evade justice and accountability, period. But you can't do it just for the party you disagree with. You can't do it in a politically motivated way. So here's the opportunity to show it's not a politically motivated thing. Let's also make sure that we get these documents from Mar-a-Lago. So with that, pursuant to Clause 2K6 of House Rule 11, I move that the House shall subpoena the Mar-a-Lago Club and all entities under common ownership or control with the Mar-a-Lago Club to provide the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform with 1. All documents, communications, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein, to include but not limited to personnel files and records, client files and records, massage and spa services records, complaints and grievances filed against Jeffrey Epstein, internal communications, and billing statements. 2. A list of all Mar-a-Lago Club personnel who provided massages on behalf of the Mar-a-Lago Club between 1997 and 2003, regardless of whether such personnel were contractors or formerly employed masseuses or otherwise. And 3, a list of all Mar-a-Lago Club personnel who were employed as or acted as managers of the Mar-a-Lago Club spa between 1997 and 2003.
A motion was made by Mr. Frost. The motion is improper as the item is not on the agenda. Any other chair recognizes?
So Mr. Chair, you want to use procedure to push back accountability?
No, we're holding people accountable today. That's why we're here.
Well, why won't you move to make sure that we get the relevant documents from Mar-a-Lago? That I just read this, and you're saying it's because it's not on the agenda that we can't move forward with this? You have full discretion of this committee to say, you know what, let's have a vote in a bipartisan way to say we want the documents from Mar-a-Lago.
I don't have full discretion. It's in the rules. We vote on a rules package at the beginning of the
You're able
Congress.
to say right now that we can vote on this.
We cannot vote on it. It's in our rules. We'll be breaking our rules. We have to apply to the rules too. We're not like the Clintons.
No. You are hiding behind process to protect these Mar-a-Lago documents, and I think it's disgraceful.
Chair recognizes Mr. Cloud.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing was noted in the Clintons' letters is they said the subpoenas were illegal. I'd be curious to know if the ranking member thinks that they're illegal. And with that, I'd yield the rest of my time to you.
Thank you, Mr. Cloud. I want to make sure everyone is aware. On February 11th, Attorney General Bondi will be appearing as the sole witness in front of the Judiciary Committee. Ms. Crockett is a member of the Judiciary Committee. I would assume, I don't want to speak for Ms. Crockett, but I would assume you'll ask her questions about the Epstein investigation and her progress towards releasing the documents. Mr. Massey is a member of the Judiciary Committee. He's already stated publicly he's going to spend his 5 minutes asking the Attorney General about the Epstein documents. So the Attorney General is slated to be in front of Congress, and I'm pretty confident that just about everybody on that committee is going to ask the Attorney General where we are with the document production. So I think that's important to note. February 11th, she's slated to be in front of the Judiciary Committee, and with the discharge petition, when the House voted for that, we issued the subpoenas for the Epstein documents. Then we all voted for the discharge petition. The discharge petition has jurisdiction in the Judiciary Committee. So she's going to be in front of the Judiciary Committee. The next week we're in session. So I think that's important to note. Do any other members seek? Okay, Mr. Lynch, then, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would remind the gentleman, and I'm sure he knows this, that the Oversight Committee is the principal investigatory committee in the House. And we have a responsibility. It may be a shared responsibility with Judiciary, but we nevertheless have a responsibility. And we are the ones who issued that subpoena. This committee did. We are the ones who sat with the victims, right? We looked them in the eye, including the Speaker of the House. We looked them in the eye, these women who have been struggling to get justice for many, many years, and we promised them, every member of this committee, we promised them that we would do everything under our power to make sure they finally receive justice. And here we are today. Now, with millions and millions of documents requested back in August, we've still received, 1% of the documents? This is evidence of wrongdoing in many cases. And yet we're allowing Attorney General Bondi to obstruct justice, basically. Even the little bit of evidence that she has provided, she also included a statement that basically said, don't believe this evidence, there's a lot of falsity in these. I mean, I have never seen an Attorney General in this country provide evidence and then give an opinion on that evidence to the legislature, to the Congress. That is unheard of. But it shows her willingness to do whatever she can to obstruct justice from being delivered. The second thing I want to say is, if we are truly interested in getting information relative to this investigation, there should be some underlying basis for that. And I have reviewed all of the evidence that's been made available so far. I find nothing that points to Secretary Clinton in this at all. Yes, she was Secretary of State at one point, but the information that we're trying to get with respect to Secretary of State is available from any Secretary of State that served in that office with respect to trafficking. So there is no direct reason, no direct evidence to point to Secretary Clinton in any of this. And yet, while those millions of documents are being denied us, we're pulling someone forward, I think, for the point of embarrassment, public embarrassment, and because of ill will on the part of the president, to bring her forward for embarrassment, but not for the purpose of gaining helpful information for this investigation. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield the balance of my time to the ranking member, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Congressman Lynch. Mr. Comer, I just want to be just pretty clear about two things, and one particularly something that you said. Let me just start by saying that you noted in your comments that your concern and your biggest concern was the issue of the transcript. And I want to just go back really quick, because you and I share respect for subpoenas. You and I share that we want the former president to answer questions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. And so does every other member of this committee. We want the former president to answer questions of this committee. And we want not just the former president, but everyone to follow subpoenas of this committee. So let's agree on that. But to be clear, President Clinton, the former president, has submitted a signed declaration. He's offered to sit with you and me and answer questions. He's offered to have staff in the room to transcribe and be there while those questions are being answered. And his request was to do it in a dignified way. Your concern, as you brought up in your last comments, was that he was unwilling to do a recorded transcript. That's actually also not true. And to be clear, there's been public reporting, including in articles that came out over the weekend, that they have not ruled out a recorded transcript. I want to ask the president questions. Chairman Comer, I want to ask President Clinton questions. Don't you?
That's why we're here.
I want to ask President Clinton questions and a recorded transcript and with our members of our staff. Would you like to do that also?
May I make a comment on the transcript? They have not agreed to a transcript. Staff notes are not equivalent.
They've actually made public reporting.
So they're wanting me to make note. They said, okay, Comer can take notes, but they've called us all liars, and you know how the Clintons have gone on offense, and look, they don't get to make the rules. We make the rules.
Can I have the rest of my time back?
Yeah. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. I want to be clear because this is an email actually that from the Clinton lawyers. You have this actually. To be clear, at no point were we opposed to the creation of a record of the interview, which is why we offered to allow the note takers previously. They go on. You have this email, sir. So I guess my question to you is, do you want to sit down and ask President Clinton questions? Actually, can I have my time back?
Will the ranking member we'll recognize Garcia, then Mr. Donald will be next. So
thank you. So my question to you, Mr. Comer, again, is if we want to actually ask questions of President Clinton, of which those of us in the minority want to do, then let's get him in. Let's negotiate a recorded transcription of that interview to further our investigation. I thank you for the yield, Mr. Lynch.
Time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Donalds.
Chairman, point of clarification. Both President Clinton and Secretary Clinton were subpoenaed by this committee to come in for a transcribed interview. Is that correct?
For a deposition.
Excuse me, for a deposition. Chairman, I've been in these closed depositions a number of times in my time being on the Oversight Committee. I failed to see what President Clinton's talking about with respect to a dignified manner. Every time I've been involved in any of these conversations, even when it was former President Biden's son came in for one of those, and I'm not trying to bring up all the Hunter stuff, it's just a point I'm making. I think everybody just take the temperature down, relax. Even those the closed door depositions have always been held in a dignified manner. Members have had questions outside of questions from committee staff, but members on both sides of the aisle had an ability to answer those questions. Those interviews are recorded. The transcripts of those interviews are provided to the public. I failed to see what special accommodations President Clinton and Secretary Clinton were looking for. Chairman, can you help me understand this? Or even a ranking member. I'm really trying to understand. I'm not trying to make a point. We do too much of that here. I'm trying to understand, because if we're holding a new meeting to replace what the committee already requested, my question is why?
Mr. Garcia is willing to answer the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Donalds. I appreciate the question. Look, I think the committee first, I'm not here to defend the Clintons, to be clear. That's their job is to negotiate with the committee. And in this case, you have the majority. Their job is to negotiate with the majority on coming in for a binding subpoena, to be clear. But I'll also note that this committee has historically made accommodations for a variety of folks. In fact, I think it is a bit hypocritical that when this very subpoena for the Clintons were actually made, I believe there were an additional 5 to 6 other subpoenas that were issued to numerous other members of former administrations, attorney generals, and so forth. Every one of those other subpoenas, I think maybe with the exception of one, were given special accommodations. In fact, they were actually allowed to just send their responses in writing. Is that correct, Mr. Comer?
That is. May I respond to that?
Yes, in just 1 second. And so accommodations are made. And so while every other folks in that group were given special accommodations, that's been typically the case. And I'll finally say just this. Like you, I want to have the President Clinton answer questions. I think they are trying to negotiate that with the majority, and they have been clear that it being transcribed is not an issue. they have not ruled that out. And so let's negotiate with the Clintons and let's get them to answer our questions.
I mean, Chairman, since I guess we're on my time, and by the way, Ranking Member, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Chairman, you were mentioning you were going to inject your commentary with respect to special accommodations that have been made for previous witnesses. I don't know if you want to expound on what the Ranking Member said or not.
I would love to. So, first of all, you talk about ongoing negotiations. We have been negotiating for 5 months. This is clearly a stall tactic, hoping that the time clock runs out and the House flips and that you all let them off the hook. But secondly, you mentioned, and I mentioned this in my open statement, there were names on that initial list with the Summerlee motion and the Scott Perry amendment. Attorney General Holder, Lynch, Sessions, and Garland, as well as Comey, they all complied and had written statements under the penalty of perjury that they had no knowledge of anything with Epstein, that they weren't directly involved in the investigation and, basically had no personal relationship. I think we would all agree the Clintons had a personal relationship with both Epstein and Maxwell. It's from the evidence that we've received thus far from the estate and all the other documents that we have thus far, it appears that Jeffrey Epstein visited the Clinton White House 17 times while he was president. And then post-presidency, it appears that Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane at least 27 times. So there's a huge difference between the knowledge and relationship with the Clintons and Epstein and Maxwell versus the former attorneys general. And another note, I don't know if it was Mr. Bell or whoever said that we only are interested in Democrats. We grilled Bill Barr and Alex Acosta, and they are very Republicans. In fact, they were members of the Trump cabinet. Now, I've been on the Oversight Committee 9 years. We've had 4 other committee chairs. We've had since I've been here, we've had Jason Chaffetz, Trey Gowdy, Elijah Cummings, and Carolyn Maloney. I don't ever remember a time, and I could be wrong. If I am, I'm sure you all will correct me, but I don't remember a time when Carolyn Maloney or Elijah Cummings subpoenaed a high-ranking Democrat to come in for a grilling. So to imply that this is partisan, that is just simply not true. We've already had 2 very the former Attorney General of the United States under Trump and the former Labor Secretary and U.S. Attorney. So we've done that. And then one other thing with the Clintons, and I'll yield back. One of the arguments the Clintons made, Mr. Garcia, was that our subpoenas were unlawful. Do you agree that the subpoenas we issued the Clintons are unlawful?
I believe that all of our subpoenas that we have issued have been lawful, sir.
Okay. Just any other members seek recognition?
Ms. Brown, sir.
Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's clear to me that the purpose of this meeting today is just to continue this committee's agenda of political theater, plain and simple. Democrats have been very clear, abundantly, repeatedly, and without room for ambiguity. We want to hear from anyone who has information about the Epstein crimes. And yet, when President Clinton and former Secretary Clinton offered to cooperate with this committee to submit sworn statements, to provide what they know, to engage in good faith, the majority said no. And that's what brings us to why we're really here today. The majority is rushing to hold in contempt 2 private citizens who have demonstrated their desire to cooperate with this committee and who have called for the release of every file on Jeffrey Epstein, all while the Department of Justice and Attorney General Pam Bondi are breaking the law in plain sight. Here are the facts. The DOJ was required by statute to release the Epstein files by December 19th, 2025. The deadline has passed by more than a month. And what have we received? 1%. 1% is not compliance. 1% is not transparency. 1% is a cover-up. What about the 1% they actually release? We've seen redactions that are extensive, unusual, and very likely illegal. And what's more, the Epstein Files Release Act, passed by supermajorities in this Congress and signed into law by this president, required the DOJ to send a report to Congress by January 3rd, 2026. More than 2 weeks later, what have we received from the DOJ? Nothing. So if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were really serious about uncovering the truth and government and accountability, we would be demanding answers from the administration. We would be demanding answers from Attorney General Bondi. We would be demanding the release of the 99% of the Epstein files still sitting at the DOJ. So I have some very simple questions. Where is the subpoena for Attorney General Bondi? Where is the hearing on DOJ's failure to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act? Where is the accountability for the redactions page after page after page? This vote feels less like oversight and more like a distraction. A distraction from the DOJ's lawlessness, a distraction from a broken promise of transparency, a distraction from the embarrassment of a co-equal branch of government choosing complicity over accountability, and a distraction from survivors who deserve this truth. If this committee is serious, then we must hold the Department of Justice accountable. Release the files, all of them, and stop playing politics with justice. Survivors deserve better. And with that, I yield the balance of my time to the ranking member.
Thank you, Representative Brown. I just want to Chairman, I want to just respond to something that you said. I think it's important. First, I just want to read the folks of who the subpoenas you have chosen not to enforce. Alberto Gonzalez, who we subpoenaed on that same day, I believe you did not enforce. Eric Holder, of course, former AG, did not enforce. Loretta Lynch, you chose not to enforce. Jeff Sessions, you chose not to enforce. Merrick Garland, who I think it'd be important to have answer questions, you chose not to enforce. Robert James Comey, you chose not to enforce. In fact, I have Attorney General Gonzalez's letter. It says, "Dear Chairman Comer, this letter is to confirm that consistent with my conversations with the committee general counsel, I have no present memory or decisions or conversations related to the investigation and prosecution of Epstein matter during my tenure as U.S. Attorney General." He, of course, was the Attorney General when the whole Alex Acosta U.S. Attorney matter was in front of a critical time in this investigation. Now, you chose not to enforce that because you mentioned that this letter is under penalty of perjury. The declaration that Clintons also made and sent to you to answer some of those questions were also under penalty of perjury. I just want to clarify that. And then with the remainder of my time, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to note that you talked a lot about the importance of our subpoenas and that we should all support this committee's subpoenas. And I agree with you, sir, and I want to hear from the Clintons. It's also important to note that we have members of this committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman Andy Biggs, Congressman Scott Perry, who are obviously very outspoken, which we like to engage with. Now, they're not here, and that's okay. Now, you also know, sir, that all three of them defied legally binding subpoenas issued by the January 6th committee relating to their efforts to overturn the 2020 election. So we should be clear that the majority chooses to be very selective on which subpoenas they want to enforce or talk about. We have members of the majority that themselves have defied subpoenas. So once again, I ask you, Mr. Chairman, let's ask President Clinton the questions that we have. Let's have him come in and testify in a way that we can negotiate, and let's get all the release of the files done immediately. Thank you.
Would you yield? Could I respond to that?
Sure, I have no more time, but I'm happy to respond.
So you say we didn't enforce the subpoenas. We did enforce. They complied and testified under the penalty of perjury that they had no knowledge. Now, the Clinton declarations were short bullet points, almost like talking points. And the evidence is clear that the Clintons did have relationship with them. Now, again, I've said publicly millions of times, there's no one's accusing the Clintons of wrongdoing, but the fact that they were that close, and the fact that I've never seen a sit-down interview with Bill Clinton where he's answered questions about his relationship with Epstein and Maxwell, like the current president has. So we have complied and enforced all of our subpoenas, 100% of our subpoenas. So I just want to make that very clear.
Can I respond to you, sir? Sure. Just to be clear, you're talking about two declarations. The declaration that you chose to use as something that you moved on to not bring him in was 1/6 the size of the Clinton declaration. I'm looking at the Alberto Gonzalez response to you, sir, that you chose to dismiss, and it is one sentence long. One sentence long. You just pointed out the Clinton declaration, which is 6 times as long. And so I just think you are using interesting points to make comparisons. Let's just be clear and get back to the facts. Let's bring President Clinton in to have a conversation with this committee. You are instead choosing to try to prosecute President Clinton and send him to jail, which is part of criminal prosecution, before having him answer questions to this committee. Him and his team have been trying to negotiate. We want to hear from President Clinton. I'm not sure that you do, sir.
You don't think I want to hear from President
Chairman
Clinton?
Comer, can I, Chairman?
But before I recognize Ms. Luna, who'll be next, I believe, are you willing to accept those bullet points as testimony, or do you want to hear from Clinton?
I want to hear from President Clinton.
Then I don't know what the point is of talking about their bullet points. I mean, that we all know they had a relationship. So,
well, sir, I'm just responding to the fact that you mentioned that you're dismissing other legal subpoenas with 1-sentence answers, and you're the one that pointed out the Clinton's declaration, which is also under penalty of perjury.
Do you think that Eric Holder or Lynch or Jeff Sessions or Merrick Garland had more? I mean, do you want to bring them all in?
I would love to have former Attorney General Merrick Garland in front of this committee to answer questions as to why more of the files weren't released. I've actually said that publicly. And so, sir, I think what it comes down to is we all want to get to the truth. We all want justice for the survivors. And I think more information is better. And so I think our position is that it is clear to me that President Clinton is negotiating to come in front of this committee. And it may not be exactly what you and the lawyer and your team want to see as far as that negotiation, or you're not satisfied with the progress, but they continue to negotiate. They have not rolled out a transcript. Let's get them in front of this committee. Thank you, sir.
Chair recognizes Mr. Gill, then Ms. Luna. Mr. Gill has a bigger. Go ahead. No, who's next? Ms. Luna. Go ahead, Ms. Luna. Then Ms.
Thank you,
Mays.
Chairman. I'd just like to remind the American people that I was the member that made the motion to hold Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress, and every Democrat voted against it. And in addition to that, 3 of my Republican colleagues voted against it, one of which did not come back because his voters decided that he was too swampy for them. So
Okay.
I'd just like to point that out. But aside from that,
Well, Ms. Luna, it's been pointed out to me you've already had 5 minutes. Somebody will probably yield you some time. So I've got to.
if I could just finish real quick. If we're looking to see why the files have not been released yet, look no further than the judge, Engelmeyer,
I'm sorry, Ms.
who's actually
Luna.
responsible
I'm sorry.
for
If
denying
someone can
O'Connor
yield
and
you some
Massey's
time.
special counsel. I'm just saying, I'm making a point.
All right.
So this is all
So we
political
haven't
games
recognized the Republican on this. Ms. Mace, do you want to be recognized?
That would be great, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of documents I would like to enter into the record this morning with unanimous consent. First of all, I want to ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to stop playing politics with justice. Not a single one of you voted for your own party to be held in contempt. I'm the only member of this body, of this committee, that has held both Republicans and Democrats alike in contempt for defying a congressional subpoena. So the hypocrisy is real, and I don't want to hear anyone on the other side of the aisle say no one is above the law here on this. We're talking about human trafficking, sex trafficking. We're talking about children, girls as young as 14 being assaulted, being trafficked by wealthy and powerful people. This is not political. This is personal. This should be nonpartisan. We should be working on this together. And it's incredible that we're politicizing rape, we're politicizing sex trafficking, we're politicizing this entire Epstein thing. And it just, as a survivor, I'm telling you, it should not be. And I've done a lot of work, Mr. Chairman, in advocacy and writing legislation for victims of abuse, male, female, and children, man, woman, and child. South Carolina, my home state, Mr. Chairman, has a huge problem with all sorts of violent crimes, but sex trafficking in my state is up by over 400%. We have domestic violence in our state where you can't get a trial. And there was a case last year where a woman 2 years ago was kidnapped by her boyfriend, beaten to a pulp, her face just beaten in. 2 years after he kidnapped her and beat her, he murdered her on Mother's Day because our local solicitor refused to prosecute that case. And I have rogue solicitors and prosecutors.
Excuse me for a second. We got to jump. President Trump is talking live.
We have a fantastic relationship with Egypt, and the president will call and ask for things, and we always are able to work it out. But the relationship's been very strong right from the beginning, from years ago. So I want to thank you very much. Yes.
اسمح لي فخامة الرئيس ان انا في البدايه بشكرك على اتاحه الفرصه ان انا لهذه المقابله، وان انا بهنيك على عام كامل من الانجازات تحقق في فتره ولايتك الثانيه.
Allow me, Mr. President, at the beginning to extend my thanks and appreciation for you for allowing this opportunity to happen and to have this meeting with you. I'd like also to congratulate you on a year full of achievements since you came back to office.
واسمح لي فخامة الرئيس ان انا اشكرك ايضا على كل ما حققت فيما يخص ملف من اصعب الملفات اللي فرضها المنطقه هو ملف غزه.
I'd like also to thank you, Mr. President, and congratulate you for all the achievements that you have done on one of the toughest files in our part of the world. This is Gaza.
وانا قلت لك فخامة الرئيس وباكد ده تاني قدام زملائنا وقدام الصحافه، لولا فخامة الرئيس ترامب لم يكن ابدا يتم ايقاف الحرب في غزه.
I said it before, I reiterate it now, I re-emphasize it before our colleagues and before the media. But for President Trump, we wouldn't have reached an agreement on Gaza.
وبطلب من فخامة الرئيس الاستمرار في رعايته لهذا الملف حتى يتحقق الخطة كاملة كما أعلنتهم فخامة الرئيس.
I really would ask you, Mr. President, to continue paying your attention and care. Your attention and care for this file so that the plan should be implemented fully.
لقد أعلنت من المرحلة الثانية فخامة الرئيس، مهم جدا إن احنا نتحرك فيها بالإيجابية الكاملة، وإحنا ستجدوا منا كل ما يمكن عمله من أجل إنجاح هذه الخطة.
So, President, you've announced the second phase of the Gaza plan. This is very important that it comes forward and it takes effect. And on our part, we'll be standing very ready to provide everything that we can to make this a success.
فخامة رئيس المجلس احنا يسعدنا ان احنا نبقى موجودين فيه، وان احنا نبذل جهد فيما يخص هذا الملف واي ملف اخر يؤدي للسلام في منطقتنا والعالم.
As for the Council of Peace, it is our pleasure to be on the Council of Peace, the Board of Peace. We are very happy to be on the Board of Peace, and we are supporting and very happy to be there, backing up every effort that can bring about peace in our part of the world and globally as well.
مش هنسى أيضا فخامة الرئيس إن أنا أشكرك على دعمك لينا في قضية وجودية، قضية ملف سد النهضة والمياه.
I'd like also to thank you, Mr. President, for your support us in an existential issue, and this is the Grand Renaissance Dam and the River Nile.
وأيضا هنا بسجل مرة أخرى إن ده أمام الصحافة إن فخامة الرئيس يهتم بهذا الملف في منذ ولايته الأولى، وحرص على أنه يقدم الجهد اللازم للوصول إلى اتفاق فيما يخص هذا السد.
And for the record and before the press, I'd like just to remind everybody that Your Excellency did a lot of effort in this regard, in this file, in your first term in office. You almost had a deal, and you did everything in your power at the time to get this deal done.
فخامة الرئيس كل التقدير والاحترام لفخامتك.
Mr. President, accept our highest appreciation and respect.
Well, thank you very much. They're talking about the dam that's been built in Ethiopia. It's one of the largest dams in the world, the largest dam in Africa, but it's one of the largest dams anywhere in the world. It was financed by the United States, and it basically blocks the Nile River. You know, when I think of Egypt, I think about the Nile more than any other place, in all fairness, but it goes through Ethiopia. And a dam was built, a very big one, very, very big one, massive. And it was something that should have been talked about a long time ago when they were building it or financing it. So I got involved at the end of my first term, and I was going to have a deal. We were going to have pretty close to a deal. Then we had a rigged election, and I left. And of course, Biden didn't do anything about it because he didn't know he was alive. And here I come back, and it's become a very dangerous issue, the dam. And I'll see if I can get that back on track. We were all set to make a deal. We're going to do a joint venture of sorts. And it would have been good. I think it would have been good for both. But it's a dangerous thing. They built a dam where somebody's not getting the water that they are supposed to get and that they've gotten for 1 million years. And all of a sudden the water flow is blocked by a very massive dam. I wouldn't be happy about it. And, you know, you have a very strong leader in the president. And I hear you have a strong leader in Ethiopia, too. I don't know him as well as I know you, but he's a strong guy. And I'm going to try bringing the two of you together, see if we can make a deal.
I appreciate that.
I think he understands me, right? I think he understands English better than we do. Okay? You know, a lot of these guys that don't understand, they understand it very well. But I think we'll be able to do something about the dam. The dam's a big problem, but we'll be able to do something. Most importantly, great leader, great guy, and we're there for each other. We've known each other right from before Hillary. It was before Hillary. We met during the campaign with Hillary, and we met at a hotel. She was supposed to meet with the president, and I was supposed to meet. I went first, and after he met me, he didn't want to meet her. And I said, I like that guy. But we've had from that moment on, that was before the election. Yes. We've always had a great relationship, and it continues stronger than ever. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
We have committed to being permanent members of the board of peace.
Well, we're going to have a lot. We have a lot of great people that want to join. It's going to be the most prestigious board ever formed. The president is a member. We have the major countries, and some need parliamentary approval, but for the most part, everybody wants to be on. I have a little bit of the opposite problem. People want to be on, and we didn't ask them. They want to get on, but we'll look at the country. So we're going to have. I think it's the greatest board ever formed, and we call it the Board of Peace. That's what it is. It's the Board of Peace, and it started on Gaza. And I appreciate what you said on Gaza, because it's true. If we weren't involved, there'd be no peace. It's peace. We have peace in the Middle East now, and you might have Hamas. We have a little flame here and there, but basically that'll be taken out. If they don't get rid of the guns, then then they will be very unhappy people. You know, we'll have no choice. They will be eliminated. They made a deal to get out. You have Hezbollah in Lebanon. We have to do something there. You know, they're causing a lot of problems, but those are small. We actually have peace in the Middle East, and the president was very instrumental. He really helped us, one of the most. And we've had great help from a number of countries, but Egypt has been great. The president's been great. And we have peace in the Middle East. It's an amazing thing. Nobody thought we'd ever see that. Now, I would say if we didn't bomb the Iran nuclear plant, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 months. You would not have peace in the Middle East. You wouldn't be able to. Nobody would be able to do that. But that's what gave us peace in the Middle East. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Everyone, thank you.
What prompted you to take military off the table for Greenland?
Thank you, Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
We'll all see what happens. The military's not on the table. I don't think it'll be necessary. I really don't.
Okay.
I think people are going to use better judgment. They'll use their best judgment, and I don't think that will not be necessary.
Thank you, press. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you, press.
All right, so in talking about Greenland, what he just said, and these people have been misinterpreting it, at first, I don't think it's going to be necessary. He did not definitively say, I will not use it, because I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think we're going to get a deal. So anyways, that's where I think he's going. So just to let you guys know, this thing is going to go on for quite some time. I don't have any problem turning it on, but we've been watching it now for, 30 or 40 minutes. And I just saw a comment. I'll get back to that comment in a second. Are we going to watch Nick Shirley's testimony? Why? I mean, seriously, but that's a different story. This congressional hearing, they're still arguing about having the hearing. They haven't even got to the actual hearing. The Democrats are trying to do anything they possibly can to stop the hearing. So I'll gauge it by how you guys want to move forward. But I'll continue playing it. Nancy Mace is doing the questioning right now.
Was convicted of having 1,900 images of toddlers as young as 3 being raped by animals. Donald Gresh, under the prosecution of my Attorney General Alan Wilson, served 1 day in jail. 1 day. Donald Gresh isn't the only pedophile, convicted pedophile, that we prosecute like that. My Attorney General Alan Wilson prosecuted this case. This is Travis Reed Gay. Well, the other thing, too, is that Donald Gresh, he was facing 60 years in jail, got 1 day. Travis Reed Gay was facing 70 years, 7 charges and 70 years in jail in South Carolina. My Attorney General prosecuted this case. He pled guilty in November, didn't serve any time. He got probation. He violated his probation 11 days later, and if he violated his probation, he was to serve time in jail. The magistrate or judge, probably didn't have a law degree, let him out hours later. He has not served any required time for this kind of thing. And I did a press conference with a bunch of moms, over a dozen moms last week in Charleston, South Carolina, and there was a local media blackout. I asked, was it my Attorney General who prosecuted this case?
I'm looking at your comments. People are like, don't punish us. No, I don't want to punish you either. Hey, listen, we've been here for 3 hours and 15 minutes. These things, that's why I don't like covering these hearings, because all they are dog and pony shows. You get 5 minutes to trash this person, you get 5 minutes to trash that person, and it just goes on until you get to the final 15 minutes when you actually vote. So what I'm going to do is since we've already been here for quite some time, I'm going to go have some lunch. I'm going to go back on tonight. I'm not going to do an afternoon show. I've got an interview I've got scheduled with a sheriff out of Illinois. I will do a couple different things. I will cut this hearing and I will take the actual vote so we can see how that went, because all this back and forth is just theatrics. The Nick Shirley thing, to me, it's not interesting. We know there's fraud. He is a guy, he is a YouTuber, they're bringing him in, and personally, I feel that's theatrics. We are beyond it right now. We are beyond the theatrics. We know there's fraud. We understand that something has to happen, and now it just has to happen. The DOJ has gone ahead and they've subpoenaed Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, and I think they also subpoenaed the police chief or a couple other people as well. It's already in the hands of Pam Bondi. Nick Shirley and the congressional people going back and forth and blah, 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 blah. It does not matter. I think we have to stop looking at things that don't matter, especially when we already know. We already know. What night was it? Last week, Thursday? I showed you the hour and 15-minute video that Nick Shirley put together. We saw it. It's old news. We've seen it. And I don't like how our congressional people keep pushing the same old pablum. Do something. That's what people want to know. These hearings aren't doing anything. Go ahead, tell the sergeant at arms, get up to New York City or outside of New York, and go ahead and force the Clintons to come down and answer a question. That's what people want to see. This back and forth, this is just theatrics. They don't even show up. When you look at the audience, there's nobody there. It's like 7 people in the audience. They don't, and these poor witnesses just have to sit there and wait and wait and wait until such time as these guys ring the bell and say, we're done, go do it. So, what I could do, no, that's not even worth it. Let's see what Pam Bondi does with it at this point. You and I, it's like looking at an accident. And I'm not really one of those guys that likes to hang out by accidents. I don't even like, accident, just keep going. I don't even really slow down. This is an accident. We need to see the triage. We need to see what Pam Bondi is going to do. We need to see how they're going to continue to prosecute the people in Minnesota. We need to see how they're going to stop the fraud. We already know there's fraud. Every single person watching this right now, you know there's fraud. You know the extent of the fraud. We've heard it, $19 billion. Enough. Do something. You don't have to convince me anymore. You had me a couple weeks ago. I don't care about the rioters. I don't care about the protesters. I now need to see you guys do something. That's where we all are. Everything else is just BS. You see President Trump, what he's doing, he's actually doing things. He's actually trying. You know, he's got the executive order about housing. He's over in Davos, flew back home. His plane didn't work, flew back again, barely got any sleep, had to get on stage. And now he's talking to world leaders. He's doing something. I'm all about doing. I'm done with the theatrics. I'm done with people trying to posture. It's time. We are there. I'm tired of the Republicans that are giving Trump resistance, who don't want to codify and don't want to sign the SAVE Act. I'm done with it. Done with all of it. We need to have people focus on what's really important right now. And what's really important is A, stopping the fraud. B, making sure these judges don't continue to allow these people to be in our country. C, codifying President Trump's orders, breaking the filibuster. That's the meat. All the other stuff is like cupcakes and donuts. They don't give you any nutrient. It's just there on a plate. Empty calories, as they say. I don't need no empty calories. I need to have my protein. I need to have my veggies, and that's what I'm looking for. So that being said, long-winded, but that's just what I feel. And by the way, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who will do shows on cupcakes and brownies. I'm just not a cupcake and brownie type of guy. I want meat. Bring me the red meat. What is that? What do I hear here? Hold on. I'm hearing something. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. It's funny sometimes when you wear these headphones and you start getting like weird sounds in them, like what's it? I hear music. Where's this music coming from? That's because like I clicked the button over here. All right, let me do super chats, and then we'll figure out what we're doing this afternoon and this evening. All right, here. Let me get the window over to where it's supposed to be. And who'd I miss? Okay. Oh, my buddy Pekovsky. Pekovsky, you're always there. You're always there, man. Thank you very much. Myrtle Beach, back from the Grand Strand. Good morning to you. Wow, Rodney Rosado. Rodney, thank you very, very much. That's going to get us some Bibles. Americans are the rich people. They've been coming after us for, no more. God bless America. God bless and protect our President, Donald Trump. Thank you very much, Rodney. Myrtle Beach, never been so proud to be an American. God bless our great nation and leaders. I agree. Thomas Fox, thank you. John, DJT, don't make me come. Yeah, I really felt like he did exactly that. It's funny, I'm looking up now. Fox is showing the same thing, and they're probably going to cut away in 30 seconds. Boom, they're done. And that's all they showed of it. Don't make me come over there. PMB said Iceland 3 times. Media will go in on that. They should. Let's see here. Fazul again, 47 did business with tougher men than these twits. Completely agree. And Buddy Sanders, what's going on in Iran is way more important than this dog and pony show. It really is. And it's funny, I'm watching as Fox is spending 30 seconds on it in summation.
Prosecute President Clinton and send him to jail. We want to hear from President Clinton. I'm not sure that you do, sir.
You don't think I want to hear from President
Chairman
Clinton?
Comer.
Now, some Democrats believe this is a diversion from fully releasing the Epstein files. The former president often...
They're not even covering it. Nobody wants to. It's just a complete dog and pony show. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in early this morning. We had a 8:30 show. Man, it was tough getting ready this morning. I had to say goodbye to the dog. Robin didn't want to wake her up. But we got it done. And unbelievably, when I was getting ready to get set up, I was talking to SV, talking to Ashley, and I'm like, Trump's not going to be there. He won't be there till like 11 o'clock. Don't worry about it. We got plenty of time. And luckily, I was sitting here and I'm like, oh, it just came on. So I saw the billboard come up. I'm like, is he really going to be there on time? And hey, man, if he can do that, that should tell you everything. If this 78-year-old man can fly, number one, go to a football game, get home at midnight, come out and do a 3-hour press conference, fly over to Greenland. Oh, we can't go there. We got to come all the way back, change planes, get on another plane, fly all the way over there, probably got minimal amount of sleep, go ahead and go out there and spank the world, go talk to other leaders, and then he's got another event later on, which I'll tape and show tonight, and then come all the way back and start all over again. That's just energy. That's like tiger energy. Got to get some of that. All right, guys, have a great afternoon. I will see you later on this evening.